Great to see so many people here tonight. If you would all join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Thank you. Betty, if you could let the record please reflect that we met in executive session to consider discussions regarding the employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or persons and collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. And with that, our first item of business, Dr. DiRosa, is student recognition.
So why don't you and I come around the front.
Happily. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So we have the good fortune of student recognition tonight. And we have 3 of them. I'm really excited for the both of you, especially you. Where is Claudia Bavaro? Come on up, Claudia. Okay, so come stand here. We're gonna say some nice things about you, okay? I love this. Cool. All right. So each year, Glenwood Landing has a month-long celebration of reading and writing. And one aspect of the month-long celebration is a fundraiser for the St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. And this past year, Claudia saved up her own money to be able to make a donation to St. Jude's. How much did you save up?
$157.
157. I have in my notes you had 278. I would go with the 278. Right?
Both are good. I don't think we should split hairs.
Right? So Claudia's decision to take her own cash that she was saving for a cell phone, and use it for children and families through St. Jude's exemplifies all that is beautiful in the world. I agree. She took to heart what she learned and wanted to implement global change. You truly turned your empathy into action, and that is super, super impressive. Thank you so much. I'm really proud of you. Wait. So you get a couple of things, right? So as you get older and grow older in the North Shore schools, hopefully you'll come back from time to time and you'll get a little collection of these certificates and a little collection of these pens. They're super cool. Don't let Mrs. Finder take it from you. Okay, fair? All right, so here's your certificate, and here's your pen, and then we get to take your picture, so come stand with us, okay? And you look right here, okay? Congratulations, well done. Proud of you. Okay, so it's been a busy few weeks for the science research program at North Shore High School. And we're really excited about all that is happening and all of the good work that's going on and all the process that goes into it. So the awards and the accolades are always terrific, but the work that the students are engaged in is frankly the most important part of it, okay? So we have 3 of our research students here tonight, and we have Dr. Mordecai, who is with us, and I want to thank you very much for your leadership. We know and recognize how much time and effort you put into making this come to life. And your mentorship is noticed and appreciated and honorable. Thank you.
You've really built a tremendous program for our schools, and we really appreciate it. We know how much you put into every one of your students. Thank you.
Okay. So it is extremely rare for a high school student to have her work published in a peer-reviewed journal. And yet that is exactly what Kate Wesley Jones has achieved. Kate needed to persevere through multiple revisions of her paper to make this happen, and it is amazing to consider that the scientists reviewing Kate's work did not even know she was a high school student. As far as they knew, Kate was a professional researcher. That is how good she is. So congratulations to Kate Wesley Jones for having her article entitled "For Pitt's Sake, the Effect of Breed Labels on Perceptions of Shelter Dog Attractiveness," accepted for publication in the Journal of Society and Animals. Kate, come on up. Congratulations, Kate. And I like the title.
Thank you.
All right, stay up here, we'll take a picture. Right. Very good. Well done. Okay. All righty. So back to science research. So last week, or the week or so ago, I forget the day, the Regeneron organization announced 300 students across the entire country who were named semifinalists. And lo and behold, North Shore High School had 2. Not 1, 2. And if you don't think I was counting who else had how many, I was, including your moms. So Keaton Denseglio and Kira McCreary were both named Regeneron Science Talent in the Regeneron Science Talent Search semifinalists. 2 of 300 students in the entire country. Okay, super impressive and rare. The Regeneron Science Talent Search is the nation's oldest and most prestigious science and math competition for high school seniors. The Regeneron Science Talent Search provides students a national stage to prevent original research and celebrates the hard work and novel discoveries of young scientists who are bringing a fresh perspective to a significant global challenge. The 300 scholars in their schools each were awarded, I think it was $2,500 or $2,000? $2,000, right? $2,000 each. The board has this on their agenda tonight. It is specifically redirected back into the science research program. And the Regeneron Science Talent Search scholars were selected from 1,993 applications received from 659 high schools across 49 states.
All of whom had completed extremely significant science
Rigorous research.
projects.
Yes. Scholars were chosen based on their exceptional research skills, commitment to academics, innovative thinking, and promise as scientists, and hail from 192 American and international high schools in 39 states and Guam. So Keaton and Kira, come on up. Congratulations, you're getting super proud. Congratulations. So Keaton, for you. And Kira, for you. And pens. And we'll take your picture. Dr. Z, when we found out that the 2 of you were semifinalists, one thing you should know is that the principals of the 3 elementary schools tend to be a little competitive about who's doing what, where. Yeah, come on up, Dr. Moore. And so Dr. Z was especially gloating that both of you went to the Seacliff School. Right. And Kate. You okay? Congratulations. Kira, don't move. Not yet, not yet. Okay, so I know this is a little weird, but we're gonna, so yesterday, we were all, including yourself, going about our days, right? And we got an email that like set North Shore ablaze, that you had been named one of 40 finalists in the science research competition across the whole country. And as a result of that, I'm sure it's still listed here, but as a result, I mean, that is unbelievably impressive. I'm really, really proud of you. And your topic, which I'm sure is written about here, is even more impressive because it really embodies a lot of what we are about in North Shore, your commitment to climate change and the impact of that, has really significant implications for the world. And so I'm really proud of you. You're welcome. So Kira has been named a top 40 finalist in the Regeneron Science Talent Search. And the 2020 finalists were selected based on your scientific rigor, their potential to become world-changing scientists and leaders. As a finalist, you'll travel to Washington, D.C. in March. You'll participate in the finals week competition. You will be awarded $25,000.
Or more.
No, well, it's a guaranteed $25,000, right?
So it's worth the trip.
And once you get there, there are awards that range from $40,000 to $250,000. And so the top 10 Regeneron Science Talent Search 2020 winners. Where's Mom? She's like 250,000.
Even the front row, was very impressed.
And the 2020 winners are announced at a black tie gala award ceremony at the National Building Museum on March 10th. And I will tell you, just very personally, from a superintendent who has worked with another student who has done this, it is life-changing. You are going to have access and be talking to the world's most eminent scientists, and then you get to come back and talk about it. It is so exciting for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You will join the ranks of, ready for this, 13 Nobel Prize winners, 21 MacArthur Foundation Fellows, and many other distinguished alumni of the Science Talent Search. So this honors you as one of the nation's most promising young scientists or mathematicians, and we wish you all the best, and I want you to have the best time when you go and be your best you and bring it home.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
congratulations. We'll see you. Thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think these awards that we just gave out are such a tremendous example of how fortunate we are to have both the students and the faculty that we have and the way that they work together. There's no question that it takes a tremendous amount of time and effort and hard work on the part of the students, and there's no question that the commitment of our faculty and the support that they give them every single day in being able to accomplish this level of work is astonishing and remarkable, and we are tremendously grateful for all of you. Thank you so much.
And we do want to also extend our thanks to the board for providing the resources to make the program successful, and you have never you have always given us the financial resources and the travel resources, and so we can't do that without your support, and we thank you as well.
I heard they were demanding a new classroom.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
As well they should.
Yes. Okay. And with that, we get to move on to the everyday
Everyday
business of the board.
business,
We
yes.
will move on to action item 3, which is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Second.
And I have a second. Questions? Yes.
I have a comment. When we were in the minutes, when you have the questions about paragraph with Trustee Russo, and I had asked about the training and the travel training. My point was that the IB training travel takes place out of state. And
Can you
We're-
tell me specifically where you are? I just want to be able to follow
okay,
along. On
so
page 5?
under regular business, yes. The second full paragraph down, I asked about the training involved for IB teachers. The discussion basically was that the training for the IB teachers is continuing, and it's out of state frequently. So we had 2 teachers down in Florida. We have another one going to Houston. Dr. Titone pointed out that we'd have training for teachers for AP. I asked where that would occur, and the answer was Queens or Long Island. I think there's a difference between going to Queens and Long Island and going to a beach resort in Florida.
Do you have a specific change you want to recommend now, or do you want us to table it and we can?
Well, you could ask about when it was, in the sentence there, she then asked about training about do you travel frequently of time, how much time is spent out of the classroom. I asked about how, about the locations of the training, were they out of state?
Don't we have the video to fall back on?
We do. It sounds like the changes might be more extensive than we can.
My point was
Specify
really that when
and-
you're talking about cost, that the training for the IB program takes place out of state. You're flying teachers out of state and putting them up. You're not sending them to Queens.
No, I understand completely. I'm just asking, are you making a motion on a very specific amendment to the minutes, or is it sufficient to have it on your comments on the record now?
I would like the minutes to reflect that the training my question was about the training of the teachers out of state. Included in that sentence. The time and the cost and the training being out of state. And my follow-up question with Dr. Titone said we also would have to train teachers for AP, where that training would take place. You could either put in a question and say the response was Queens and Long Island, or you could put in that the training would be done locally. But the question was not simply about the training. It's the training and the time out of classroom and the cost of sending our teachers out of state.
So can I make a suggestion,
Right,
maybe?
which I understand, but right, procedurally.
Yeah, maybe I can make a suggestion. So if Betty has this, you can talk to Betty about it, and she'll work with you exactly on how the minutes should read. So my suggestion maybe is the board can table this for now, bring it back on February 6th, and in the meantime, you can talk to Betty about how how you'd like the minutes to read, and we can modify them. Right. Okay. So do you have a sense of how?
But we can also
I
make,
think, I understand why Betty
Okay.
didn't put it in there, but my point was a little,
Are you looking at where are you? It does say how many teachers are out at a time and the cost. That was your question. Your question was the time out of the classroom and the cost. But you
Right,
wanted to
for-
be more
for-
specific about that they're out of state.
that the training takes place out of state
For IB.
for IB.
Okay. So you want me to just add that?
I think
That's
you could
fine.
add that.
That would be
Um,
fine.
We
Or,
can,
I could put the minutes up in draft form.
and then, that's what I would suggest, is that I make a motion that we table it, but that you'll make your best effort at the change, and we'll post it as a draft, but we will vote on it next time.
Because everybody should agree to whatever the
Okay.
change is.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. So if
But let's
That's
post,
fine.
agree to just adding about the out of state, but if you all want to agree to what's being added, then, I think you all need to see what is being added.
do you want to make a motion to add just the phrase about out of state, or do you want us to post draft, make a motion to post
Post-draft,
the
and then
draft minutes?
I'll work
and-
with Betty on the language, okay?
Okay.
I think would probably be cleaner, and then everyone can see it.
So you want me to make a motion?
Betty can circulate it.
Yes.
So I'm going to make a motion that we table official approval of these minutes, post them in draft form until such time as Mary Ann and Betty have gotten together on the language, and we will formally approve them at our next public meeting on February 6th.
Second.
Thank you.
Questions or comments on Dave's motion? All in favor? Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, please. It does bring us to the report of the superintendent.
Okay, so we have a lot going on tonight, and we've got young people who need to get to sleep, right? Okay. So I'm going to do this very quickly and just say welcome to all of our students, all of your parents, our administrators, and our teachers. This is a pretty cool, fun night for all of us, right? So we're going to talk about our shared valued outcomes, how they are so important to our core program, and then you are going to, some of you are going to be working with some of us on stuff, right? Yeah? Okay. All right. And then after we're done with that, we're going to let you go home, right? And then we're going to do a brief update on the budget development process, which you're welcome to stay for, but that's on you.
That's the best part.
That's the best part, right? And we've covered all the other good stuff that's happening. So I'd say let's just get to it. Okay. And so with that,
That is the report. of
that is
the.
the report. That is the report.
All right. Then when we move on to the report from the SGO.
Thank you so much for having us.
Our
So
pleasure.
this past week, the SGO voted on a theme for sports night. We did it a little early, but some people in the SGO got excited. So we decided on music genres.
Music what?
Music genres.
Cool.
So we're excited for that.
And this past Friday and Saturday, we had the senior play. Big success. The first night we got $2,500, and in total we got $4,000. So very successful. And
Terrific.
a lot of fun.
And that money will be going towards our senior prom.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you very
All
much
right,
for
well, thank
coming. We
you.
appreciate the update. Thank you.
No update on socks? Not yet? All right.
Still want your socks.
Okay. I'm not going to know.
Uh,
Thank you, guys.
Bring a selection when you have them to the board meeting so that we can all see it on the video. And you may have a few other takes, you never know.
Never know.
Thank you, guys.
Next, we have regular business. Discussion item A is our discussion of the shared valued outcomes.
Yes. Do you want to let any people who are done like student recognition people excuse them?
Absolutely. I mean, you can say it explicitly. Yeah. We're going to have a discussion on the shared valued outcomes while they're setting up. If there's anyone that, this is a perfectly good opportunity to slip out the back if you don't wish to feel the need to hear about the shared valued outcomes as well.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Z, thank you for leading the discussion tonight on our shared valued outcomes. I know this work has been, these have come together a while ago, and we, over the past 3 years, 2.5 years, at least that I've been here, we've been working with a lot of purpose on their implementation in measurable ways. So I'm excited to see what you all have for us tonight, and I will turn it over to you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Gio Rizzo, Board of Education members, trustees, Dr. Gio Rizzo, and community members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about what many of us consider one of the most important instructional efforts at North Shore, our shared valued outcomes. So I'm going to be starting off this evening, and then we have some guest speakers who really demonstrate what we call internal models of the type of work that we hope to spread system-wide. The shared valued outcomes are so rooted in the core of who we are at North Shore and even in our mission statement. Our mission is to nurture and enrich our students' natural delight in learning, commitment, and the powers of the mind and body. Each child's awakening into confident young adulthood requires guided engagement with vital ideas and events of the past to realize fresh possibilities and discoveries for the future. Innovation. We aspire to foster in our students those qualities of character consistent with the ideals of a democratic society, communication and collaboration, We are committed to reaching beyond routine expectations in a learning environment that encourages inquiry, thinking, and problem solving, and builds its daily practice upon respect for oneself and others, commitment. The rise of high-stakes testing in the early 2010s and our district's board policy response in articulating how North Shore would focus on balanced assessment of different types of outcomes opened the door for a district-wide focus on skills not addressed in the standard curriculum. At the same time, several principals and other administrators in the district began engaging their faculties and their respective communities in discussions around things such as growth mindset, community service, and authentic problem solving. In 2014 and 15, our district began to identify the 6 shared valued outcomes. And soon after this, administrators began to design initial definitions of each outcome as well as key components of each SVO. Draft rubrics, which mapped out more complex and simple behaviors in each SVO component, were developed in the summer of 2015. And that's when the work really started to launch. 2015 and 16 was the first school year in which all 5 schools began to integrate the SVOs into lessons and projects, and it was a very exciting time. Our faculty and our administrators were energized by the possibilities and quickly embraced connecting learning opportunities with the SVOs in a holistic manner. Planning time was given to faculty to work with each other and administrators to design performance-based assessments, which connected an SVO and multiple SVOs holistically. Examples include I Innovate at Glen Head, the play-based initiatives at Glenwood Landing, the Global Issues projects at Seacliff School, an American Identity project at North Shore Middle School, and the Writing Mentors Literacy project at North Shore High School. As part of this stage of the work, some of these projects involved North Shore faculty working with a collaborative group known as PADI, the Performance Assessment Design Initiative, and training with other Tri-States Consortium districts to create projects and learning opportunities that were connected to the shared valued outcomes. And those became more complex over time. We started to connect the SVOs to assessment, to rubrics, learning progressions, and authentic real-world extensions. In 2016 and 17, we kind of jumped into the next phase. Teachers and administrators began to explicitly include the SVOs in all curriculum projects and their lesson plans, as well as new courses and electives involving STEAM, media, and theater. And it was in this year that we began to see the SVO language more visible in classrooms and in communication to parents. At North Shore High School, continued work in the IB program, and specifically the IB Learner Profile, matched the language and the intent of the shared valued outcomes, and that was communicated to parents and teachers of all courses, not just IB courses. And as we completed our first 2 to 3 years of work at the end of 2017, and that was around the same time that Dr. Gia Rizzo joined us, we started to kind of take note of where we were and assess, and we engaged in several different projects at that point to ask ourselves how we could take this work to the next level. The first thing that we did in the summer of 2017 was engage in a collaborative effort with Giselle Martin-Eep, who had led us through many of those PADI projects. And we had a summer workshop with parents, with teachers, with students together to analyze and annotate teacher and student work related to the SVOs, to look at how the SVOs show up in different grade levels and different subjects, to provide feedback to teachers on work, and to provide professional development regarding the integration of the SVOs. And this was a big first step in PD, and also bringing the community and different stakeholders together to talk about the SVOs. It was a terrific experience, but it was a small group of constituents. So we still had questions. In the fall of 2017, in a document entitled Matching Our Actions to Our Values, the district outlined where we were with the SVOs and identified several goals. Refining the definition and the descriptors of the SVOs, expanding the focus from just school buildings to the whole district, creating learning progressions, building capacity to ensure the SVOs were essential part of a North Shore education, cultivating students' ability to incorporate the values in all aspects of their school life, and ensuring that the SVOs are known and understood. Later in that year, we were due for a Tri-States Consortium evaluation, and we asked them to evaluate our progress in these areas, specifically we asked them 2 questions. To what extent are the SVOs known, understood, and supported by all constituent groups? And to what degree are the SVOs integrated in the operational, instructional, assessment, and daily practices of our district? And that review happened in the spring of 2018. And there were several different recommendations that Tri-States gave to us. Last spring, Rob Klipicki led the SVO task force, and they processed those recommendations by grade building level. And I believe it was in April of last year, he had outlined those recommendations and suggested actions to address those recommendations. What we have done this year is take those recommendations and look at them system-wide and create themes that are K through 12. And so rather than look at the work by each building, it will be different in each building, but looking at the themes so we can think more systemically, the way students travel through the district, and consider the ways in which students transition from one grade to another. So I'm going to briefly just talk about the 5 themes and some of the work that we're doing before I hand the presentation over. Some of the recommendations related to curriculum. Developing models, identifying benchmarks, making connections between the IB learner profile and the SVOs, building an awareness of the SVOs, and that work needs to happen at all grade levels. In instruction, providing and using meeting time and planning time for teachers to share ideas, increase awareness, develop common units, and promote the articulation of work that involves the SVOs. Involving SVOs in professional learning, professional development, peer coaching, observations and instructional rounds, and developing explicit expectations of the SVO work. Another theme, assessment. Engaging in discussions about how we can assess the SVOs at each grade level, identifying the frequency and the success with which SVOs are being integrated, and increasing the awareness of what was done in K through 5 and 6 through 8 through transitions from the system elementary to middle to high school. 2 other themes that were kind of new, but that we're seeing the power of this work: student reflection, involving students in the reflection in their growth of the SVOs, actively engaging students in the SVO initiative, and last but certainly not least, parent and community, and making this a specific goal of improving the parental awareness of the SVOs, the work that we are doing inside the classrooms, increasing communication, and also connecting to the community with the SVO work that's going on in the schools. This year, our SVO task force took shape as 2 groups: a steering committee led by myself, Mr. Albert Cousins, the principal of North Shore High School, and Dr. Carol Smythe, our director of elementary STEM. And then we also have a district creation team that includes Mr. Seth Gordon, Dr. Smythe, Ms. Julie Ritter, Mr. Stephen Minchell, Ms. Amy DiMiola, Ms. Dalia Rodriguez, as well as myself. And our goal is to focus on high impact actions that we will work towards in focus and depth. And so here are some of those actions. The first is to develop principles or understandings around the SVOs based on our experiences in developing SVO work. Things such as understanding that the SVOs are identified through research, that they are not single acts or events, that the nature of SVOs is that they need to be practiced and experienced, and they can develop as skills in students over time. They are best brought out, and we're going to experience this in a few minutes, in times of challenge and in times of stress, as skills and dispositions that we draw upon, and also that we develop in those challenges. And so these are learning principles that we establish to help guide our work as we incorporate the SVOs into learning designs. Another design from this year that Dr. Smythe and Mr. Cousins and I have worked on is the creation of innovation teams. At our superintendent's conference day this year, we created 20 themes that teachers could choose from, and teachers visited 4 of these themes, and they chose one, and we're dedicating Monday meeting time to their intentional and creative design of learning experiences that involve the SVOs in that theme. So themes such as student feedback, reinventing grading, media literacy, that's the one that I'm a part of, mindfulness, and just a creativity focus of teaching students how to be creative. And within those innovation groups, teachers are creating those learning designs, and we're trying to now also incorporate the learning progression. So one of the biggest accomplishments that we've had this year is, for several years we've been working on these shared value learning progressions, and we have recently completed them. And this is important because it looks like a simple document, but it unlocks so many doors to take us to the next level in our work. For years, it's been hard to define what is collaboration, what is communication. Those words can mean so many different things to different people, students and teachers. So this allows us to be specific and precise in our planning, specific and precise in our goal setting, really zooming in on what part of collaboration, what part of innovation are we focusing on, and creating learning targets that are specific to students and classes. So this is going to guide the innovation work. This will also guide the creation of common assessments, which is another theme that we're working on, grade level assessments. And Ms. Small will be speaking about that tonight. And also self-assessment, having learning targets, students being able to use the document to set targets for their own growth. These are some of the accomplishments that we have gotten to at this point by January of 2020. And what is some of the work that we need to do? We do need to work on creating common grade level assessments that measure the longitudinal growth of the SVOs. And we have capstone assessments that exist in the elementary level. And we are looking to extend those to higher grade levels. On a whim, Dr. Smythe and I were researching 21st century skills assessments, and we came across a gentleman who worked for the Park Assessments and now works for ACT. And we actually do have a meeting with ACT and assessments that they're developing for 21st century skills to see how that meshes with our shared valued outcomes learning progressions. So we're really looking to design 21st century assessments that can guide the success of our work, help us measure the success of our work from elementary school to middle school to high school. We also, as a group of principals and directors, will be working to embed the learning progressions in individual courses. And rather than just set a standard for where a student should be, we're thinking in terms of from where and to where. And that in between, from where students are to where we want them to go, that is, I say colloquially, where the magic happens, the tension between where they are and really identifying that and where we want them to go. And so what we will be doing eventually is every single course in the North Shore schools will have a part of a progression that is specific to, that makes sense for that course. And this will be a process that involves administrators and teachers, and a specific part of a progression that is taught explicitly, assessed, involved in the process in that course, and that actually helps enhance success in that course. So for example, developing explanations, that would make sense in a social studies course. And a specific part of that would make sense in a high school social studies course versus a middle school social studies course. And so explicitly embedding it, making it in effect a part of the curriculum, and covering all parts of the progressions throughout our K through 12 curriculum. Another piece of our work will be creating a very explicit and specific crosswalk between the IB learner profile and our SVO progressions to really connect the work of those two pieces. And we've used the term dispositions, skills and dispositions. If you look at the commitment progression, you see a lot of the pieces of the IB learner profile. Those are more dispositional. And so they live as part of commitment, but they also live in the other shared valued outcomes. Parent outreach. One big goal for this year is to have a parent university that explains this work and the nature of it and how we feel like it will benefit our students in their regular academic work as well as developing these specific skills. Another larger goal related to this is, just like financial information is public on the public website, sociocurricular information be, and making that more transparent. We will be working on creating curriculum maps that are easy to understand and clear and accessible and available to parents. The 3 Ps, policies, procedures, and PD, really making sure, as per the Tri-State's recommendation, that our policies for hiring, the way our internal policies with faculty, our school rules, all of those pieces of policy and procedure are consistent with our shared valued outcomes, and that we also tie professional learning in our summer workshop series and Superintendent's Conference Day to the SVOs. And then the more exciting part, the exemplars, the work that's going on right now that we're about to share with you, and to really see how we can share and spread this work. A concept that we often use when we observe classes that has been proven successful is this notion of internal models. When you observe a teacher and you can recognize something that's going really, really well, that's leading to student success, engagement, critical thinking in that class, and then how you can use that to spread, to replicate that within that same lesson or other lessons or with other teachers. That concept is what we're looking at here. So you're going to see exemplars tonight of all of those to-dos that are on our list from the Tri-State's recommendations. So we have 4 pieces that we're going to show you. The first is instructional, powerful instruction and learning and opportunities. The second is course design, and Mr. Ficini is here to talk to us about courses that he has taught that involves the SVOs. The third is the involvement of students in assessing their own growth, which has been proven time and time again through research to lead to the highest outcomes and engagement levels. And Mr. Dennis is going to talk about his digital portfolio project with us that we would like to expand from the middle school to the other grade levels. And then Ms. Deversmall is going to talk to us about the grade level capstone assessments that can help us, as we build them vertically, help us show the progress of student learning in the SVOs. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Most definitely the students who are up late, and several of these students are on our Superintendent Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee, and we have some visitors as well, so thank you so much. And I'm going to turn this now over to Ms. Finder, Dr. Rufa, and Ms. Wojcik.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much. I just want to give a quick introduction. I'm Bridget Finder, the principal of Glenwood Landing School. This is Jeanette Wojcik, the principal of Seacliff School, and Dr. Rufa, the principal of Glen Head School. And we just want to thank you for this opportunity to showcase our work tonight. We are excited to be here to share with you an update on some of the work we've been doing in the elementary schools around the shared valued outcomes. We're very proud of the work that our teachers are doing. When they're planning, teaching, they're including it as we walk through classrooms. We see these skills and dispositions in action every day. And tonight we're going to share just one experience that exhibits the use of the shared valued outcomes. So this summer, at our administrative retreat, our assistant superintendent for instruction, Chris Zublionis, researched and brought to us an innovative team building activity using the breakout EDU boxes. The activity that Dr. Zublionis designed engaged the administrators in the use of many of the SVOs. And by the way, Jeanette and I were on the winning team. Peter, not so much. We were inspired to bring this activity to our own schools. We used it with our teachers, and then the teachers had a similar experience and were excited to bring it to their classrooms. We've spent a lot of time over the years sharing and talking about the shared valued outcome work, and we thought that tonight it would be a really good idea to have you actually participate and experience some of the activities that are happening in the classrooms, and we thought you might need some help, so we did bring some student volunteers to help you out. So if they could quickly just stay seated, because we're not ready to move yet, but if you could just quickly just give your names. If you want to start. Ella? Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to
So when we received these innovative breakout boxes, along comes with it a plethora of information that allows us to tailor our teaching towards specific content areas for students in grades K through 12. So not only do we have the hard boxes that you'll experience tonight, but there's also a digital component where students can practice online and use breakout boxes online as well. Teachers create the challenges and can integrate them with all content areas. We've seen these boxes used successfully with our PE classes where they've used obstacle courses, in our math classes where they've worked on order of operations. It's been in our ELA classes where students have worked on Oh, the Places You'll Go with Dr. Seuss's book. So it provides a wide range of content area where students can really dig in and use the SVOs to work through their productive struggle. Today, we designed a breakout box around the topic of technology. So as you know, technology has evolved over the years, and it's been a tool that's allowed us to capture our work around the SVOs. So think about how technology has changed in order to complete the task that we're going to offer you tonight. Okay, so here it is. The Chief Viking needs your help. Your Chief Viking, Dr. Giorizzo, lost the password to his Twitter account.
Again.
He was about to tweet out about how North Shore students are living the SVO and he needs help. Will you help this Viking remember his password so he can get back into his Twitter account? So, you will be faced with two challenges. Be sure to examine your locks and decide how to use the information to find the codes. So I'm going to ask our students at this point, you know who you're going to be working with, so please walk up. So you can put the boxes are underneath the tables, so students please grab your box underneath and you can put it on top. Will that play, Chris? Will that play? Okay, so we're going to give you 8 minutes to work through 2 puzzles of the breakout box as a team. Okay, you may begin.
The meeting is adjourned. We've won. That's it. I'm just kidding. There was no motion.
1 minute and 45 seconds. That's all I'm saying. That's how much they got it.
Oh, and one, that's how long, oh my gosh, that's great. So about 4 minutes left. You're halfway through.
So I think, as everybody can tell, the energy in the room shifts when we design lessons that incorporate the SVOs. Thank you to our student volunteers for being so helpful. And a big part of the work that we do when we design, encourage our teachers to design these lessons, is then reflect on the process. So some of the questions that we would have our teachers asking our students afterward would be, to what extent have all types of technology impacted society? To really talk topical about how technology allows us to live and breathe our SVOs in a variety of ways. Second would be really, as Dr. Zublionis pointed out earlier, doing a deeper dive in the conversations about what SVOs were needed to be successful, which of the shared value outcomes were required to complete the task, what strengths or challenges emerged from doing this task. So just quickly, guys, what are some of the SVOs you think you needed to implement? Harlan. Communication. Collaboration. Shout out another one. Yeah. Right. A deeper level in the idea of collaboration. One more. Problem solving, innovation, problem solving. So these tasks are really designed to get our students to start thinking about the skills that are required to be the breathers of our SVOs. Lastly, a question that we've been tackling with as building leaders and an administrative team is how we are fostering the growth of these SVOs. And Dr. Zublionis pointed to some of this earlier. We continue to foster this growth in the SVOs by providing our teachers with time to plan meaningful experiences for our students to integrate them in their learning. And then when we look at where are the advantages of this type of education in short-term and long-term planning and goals, I think we've already seen some of that with the success of our science program and our research program, having those students become innovators, collaborators, problem solvers, critical thinkers. And ultimately, we believe as an administrative team that this type of learning is an integral part of our students' educational experience, particularly at the elementary level. As we look to the future, it's our responsibility to develop these dispositions in our students so that they are not only college and career ready, but are able to have a positive impact in an increasingly complex world community. We're very proud of the work that our students do every day around this, and we're very proud of the work that our teachers do around this every day. And at this point, I think it's past many of our friends' bedtime, so we're just going to collect them and scoot them out. But can we give them a big round of applause, and thank you so much.
And thank you for your help. No kidding.
Thank you, guys. We really appreciate the help. I think it was obvious to you all that we could not have gotten out of our boxes without you, and we would have been here all night. So thank you. We appreciate it. And I think you also very successfully proved that even trustees like to get to do hands-on learning.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for loaning us your children.
Thank you so much, students and elementary team. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ficini, who's going to give us a quick overview of, at the secondary level, how courses and learning experiences promote deep learning in the SVOs.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
That's tough to follow, Mr. Ficini.
Yeah,
Right?
very tough. I need them back here. So, do I have to stand by the microphone? I'm pretty loud. Okay, I'll stand by the
For
microphone.
the only for the tape.
Can I walk around?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. All right. So my name is Mr. Ficini. I am the technology and engineering teacher at the middle school and now the high school. I teach robotics in the high school, and then I also teach various different course electives in the middle school as well. So what we have in the middle school, this is our electives and required courses. We have 6th grade technology is required in 6th grade as a cycle course for 8 weeks. We have 7th grade is also a cycle course, technology 7. And then in 8th grade, they are electives. So they don't necessarily have to take these classes, and not every student gets them. Lego Robotics and Renewable Revolution in 6th grade are electives, so not every student also gets them. And then coding electronics and Renewable Revolution 7 is also courses that they are elect to take. And I just wanted to point these out because there are a lot of different courses, and I could go through all of these and talk about the SVOs and how they incorporate into every single one of these classes. So what I did was I took a couple of examples from different courses, as well as the high school courses, which I'll go over next, to show you the SVO work that's going into these curriculums that we are just building now. Most of these curriculums are how long I've been here? 5 years old, so they are very, very new, and they're constantly changing and evolving with the SVOs as we grow forward. In the high school, design and drawing for production is elective in lieu of art or technology credit, and you have woodshop 1 and 2, robotics tech challenge, which I teach, and then principles of engineering as well. All these courses, like we say, they incorporate the SVOs. Students are coming into class and they're doing project-based learning where they have a problem in front of them. They have to be problem solvers, and they have to come out and solve it. Most of the time they will be in groups, so they are communicating, collaborating. They are thinking. They are going out there and getting, finding a solution to a problem that hasn't been solved yet. So it could be innovating as well. And my favorite part about teaching these classes is it does involve every SVO in almost every project. If it's a group project, it's involving every SVO. Even if it's not a group project, they have to communicate and collaborate to see or find out, let's see, oh, well, what'd you do there? And I have them actually go out and find out what other people did to kind of get an idea of how to make their designs better. So how we support the SVOs, I just wanted to talk about the LEGO Robotics team at the middle school. The first LEGO Robotics team, they are right now, we are in like crunch zone right now. We have practice every morning and afternoon for an hour, hour and a half. Our competition will be on Sunday in Huntington. But they are always, they come in, they start talking, they collaborate and communicate what needs to get done that day. They go out, they start doing it. They actually break apart. You see some students are at the computer, some students are over here at the board figuring out, how the robot lines, maybe making new attachments to do different missions. And there are also other students over here that are actually working on a project that has to do with their problem that they came up with for the actually area of North Shore. Okay, so LEGO Robotics, this is the course. In the course, each student is paired up with another student, or there are groups of 3 depending on the class size, and they have to code a robot to do the different problems on the board that's actually you saw it before. I like this because every year it changes, so every year I have to kind of up my ante and figure out these games as well, and it actually gives me a little bit of a problem solve as well. And they're all always collaborating. Okay, whether they're building, they have the opportunity to actually design or innovate their own designs. I give them kind of free way of the first week. They're allowed to build any robot they want. They can go from, they can pick a design that they find online, or they can actually go out and build something on their own completely. And these are a couple of students. Well, that's siblings. Okay. The next course I want to talk about is the Renewable Revolution course. This course actually has 3 grade levels. The first year we talk about recycling, so we talk about recycling different materials. So we talk about plastics, we talk about cardboard, we talk about how they impact our society, and how we can use them differently. So students are coming in there and they're problem solving, right? The plastic ocean garbage patch is a really big problem that not a lot of people know about, but it's kind of coming up in media nowadays. So they start off with their plan, and this group of students, they were the best collaborators and communicators, and every year I kind of see that students are able to collaborate and communicate better and better, and I think that's the work that they're doing in the elementary schools. And as they come up, and every year they seem to be better and better as they go on. So right now they're planning, they're actually building a model of their cardboard chair, and then they began actually figuring out and drawing out and making templates, because they're actually building a cardboard chair that has to fit a person or hold a person. And cardboard is not necessarily the most strongest material, so they have to figure out a way, or problem solve and design and innovate a way to actually hold a person. I always have to sit on it, and that's like the stamp of approval. As they're building, they're actually moving along pretty quickly. They're cutting. They're giving each other jobs. Each person had a different task every day when they came in. And then when they started fitting things together, they were still cutting at this point, but 2 students started doing it. And then they go into the testing and how everything's working in together. And there were points where they weren't sure if this was going to work. We're like, how is this going to work? And they had to actually go out and test. And then they had to go back and rethink. And their perseverance in this project just showed their commitment to the project as committed individuals. And that's the final project. It actually looks like a pretty comfy couch. It actually was pretty comfy. It was able to fit 2 students. It's still up. We had it in the library, but we moved it back into the room. They were able to kind of make it look like an actual couch by wrapping it in cardboard. I think they did a great job. And then the high school robotics team is the last thing I'm going to talk about. They are the epitome, again, like I say, every course that we do here in technology and engineering is collaborating, communicating, problem solving, thinking. And these guys, I think they show it themselves. Everybody has seen them around. They're always out and about. So their inspiration has created a course in the high school that is First Tech Challenge, which is the tier below the First Robotics Challenge, which they do. And this course has a very small group of students. There's only 4 students in it due to the amount of students that couldn't fit it into their schedule. But these students come in every day, they work hard, and they actually have an agenda, as always. Now, what I wanted to bring in is the innovating part, because this year we have new 3D printers, we have new technology that they are able to use at their hands, and we actually had them come up with, they built everything through this robotic Tetrix set, and they were able to make this block get picked up and dropped. But the problem was, is you could see as he is holding the arm, their problem was they had to kind of create something that was lighter. It was too heavy. The motor that we had, they couldn't gear it to a good enough gear ratio to be able to lift up. So I said, why don't we 3D print something? So they actually went on to CAD. They taught themselves CAD, some of them, and they were able to build some different grippers and a different armature for their arms, just to show some innovation. So these were 3D printed. I don't know if you want to do that, and these just open up. You want to pass it around. They were able to innovate these new things with the technology that was available to them, using the different 3D printers. This 3D printer that is very new is high grade. You can print resins on it. You can print actually ceramics on it as well. So I've been actually talking to the art teachers and talking about different ceramics and trying to collaborate and communicate with them. And that's it. So thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Ficini. We're going to continue talking about the secondary schools, and Mr. Dennis is going to talk to us about another theme that is so critical to the work, and that is making assessment something that students are at the center of rather than something that happens to them. So, Mr. Dennis, thank you for being here this evening.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about really an evolving process at the middle school that, along with the faculty, last year we really started to sink our teeth into the idea of how do we bring students into the fold with respect to reflecting on their growth and development as collaborators, communicators, thinkers, etc. So I want to take you through our journey and talk with you more importantly about next steps and where our school is going. We have a really committed group of teachers. There's about 10 teachers I work with on a monthly basis in a collegial circle. We're looking at that idea of making students explicitly reflect on their growth and their progress towards each of these shared values. So that collegial circle that I work with, our essential question is, to what extent can student ownership of feedback help to support growth and develop students as independent learners? So that idea of feedback is something that our teachers painstakingly think about in every single assignment that is given to students. They think about the ways that feedback can be given. It can be given in a one-on-one conference, in a small group conference. It can be given on paper. It can be given digitally. So the question that we ask ourselves now is, the feedback that we give to kids, how is that shared with parents? How is that internalized with kids, and how do we look at that growth over a period of time? For those of you who are currently middle school parents or who have had students in the middle school, you might have noticed this year a shift in how we report feedback on our report cards. So that's kind of the first step in our conversation tonight that I want to share with you. So last year, about this time, maybe February or March of last year, with our faculty at faculty meetings, we started to look at what we value as a staff and if those values are being communicated in our reporting. So we only get to report cards, right? That's every quarter. Parents see that. And for those of you who have had students in the middle school prior to this year, you know that students got a quarter average, and they also got a U for unsatisfactory or an S for satisfactory in the areas of attitude and effort. And we really have been asking ourselves for a while, are those terms, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, attitude, and effort, really what we value? And how do we measure that a little bit deeper? So last year with our faculty, we looked at the 6 SVOs, and we looked at, can we give and can we explicitly, if our courses are explicitly designed to intentionally show growth in each of those areas, how can we share that progress with parents and with kids? So we took a look at our 6 SVOs, and we created comments for each of those SVOs. And we looked at it from the lens of, I am a committed individual because, or I can show growth as a committed individual by. So all of our comments now, and there's probably a bank of 60, that all of our comments reflect that. So I have a few examples here of what report card comments look like. So this SVO is the area of committed individual. So teachers, on their drop-down menu for report card time, can choose an area of strength and or an area for growth. So you can see the sentence starter is the same. You are a committed individual because you appropriately seek support, or you consistently strive for your personal best, or you demonstrate empathy to others. And we have a variety of those comments for each of those SVOs. On the area for growth side, the sentence starter is, there is room for you to grow as a committed individual by not talking excessively in class and causing distractions, consistently attending extra help, thoughtfully and independently engaging in classroom assignments. So we thought that was one way to begin to share with students a more meaningful snapshot of their contributions in class, because from the last 2 presentations that you saw earlier this month and in December from the department directors, you see how much we value process. So we really want kids to really think about that process over the course of time. So we created some feedback. I met with every single team of teachers to talk about those ideas, to create some edits and modifications. And then this past school year, beginning with first quarter, we rolled out those comments. Also this past school year, beginning in the fall, like I mentioned, we created a collegial circle that focused on that essential question of feedback, reflection, and then ultimately where we'd like to take the school next year to student-led conferences. So our work together is now focusing on the role of feedback, reflection, and student-led conferences, and really putting students in the driver's seat for owning that feedback and owning that growth. So our work for the future, starting probably in March or April, that collegial circle will present our ideas and our proposal to the larger faculty. We'll have some of their feedback, and then our goal next year is to institute student-led conferences. So the collegial circle has 2 texts that we're reading to kind of anchor our thoughts. The first by Patty Kinney, Fostering Student Accountability Through Student-Led Conferences, and the second by Matt Renwick, Digital Portfolios in the Classroom. So it is our vision that digital portfolios will be the vehicle through which students can comment upon and archive their growth over the course of time in each of the 6 shared values. So this is kind of just a model of our thinking as a group of individuals in the collegial circle. We're kind of thinking about these student-led conferences, the where, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. How will this all happen? When will it all happen? And these are ideas we're still exploring. This is not finalized yet. This was as a result of our last collegial circle. So who is involved? What is a student-led conference? So it's exactly what it says right now. It is a student leading a conference about their growth. This current school year that we're in is also the first time that we instituted 7th and 8th grade parent-teacher conferences. So we want to take that model of parents being the one, or excuse me, of parents and teachers being the only ones at those conferences to really now have students drive the duration of that 15 or 20-minute conference. So that's our goal next year, and we're figuring out how we'll get there. We believe that process, students having an authentic audience, students being able to share with their parent, with their teachers, with their E3 squad leader, you know, their areas of strength and their areas for growth for the future. We'd also ultimately like to have an 8th grade experience at the end of middle school, kind of looking at the profile of a North Shore Middle School graduate and a showcase really of the growth of your 3 years. So I explained earlier that the vehicle we want to use for that growth, the vehicle we want to use for that student-led conference is a digital portfolio. So that's some of the work that we're doing right now. In our school, I am very fortunate, thanks to your support. This is our 2nd year now with an instructional technology coach. And we have a teacher who works every single day giving professional development during team planning time. She's part of our collegial circle, and she is instrumental in designing much of this work. So if you would allow me for a second, I want to X out of this screen and take you to what exactly this portfolio will look like. We're working with Amplify IT, who is an extension of Google. We're one of maybe 15 school districts in the entire country who are working with Google to design our own customary, we get to pick what we want to put in there, digital portfolio. And it's really, really powerful work. I'll take you there really quickly. That song, Under Pressure, is in my mind. If you're familiar with Google, in that top right corner, we call that the waffle. Now at North Shore Middle School, if you click from and if you log on as a North Shore Middle School student or teacher, one of the waffles, aside from Drive or Docs or Sheets or Slides, is E3 Portfolio, is what we call it. So our instructional technology coach, Christy Lieberman, worked with Google over the summer and created one of our drop-down menus, E3 Portfolio. It's really, really powerful. Where are my steps? 1 second. Hang on, I'm going to sign out. 1 second. I could do this in my sleep by myself, man. This is the waffle. If you scroll, so these are all, you know, things that every company in the world sees. You see it at your house, Gmail, Docs. If you scroll down now, because of our Christy Lieberman, we have E3 Portfolio Showcase. That was designed in tandem with Google and Amplify IT. So our students in this student-led conference will use that to showcase their work. I don't want to waste your time. I'm clearly not clicking something correctly, so I'll just go back to the correct part of the presentation and walk you through the sample that I have. So kids will be able to get to their digital portfolio, and they'll see each of the 6 shared values with an icon at the top of the screen. So collaborators, communicators, committed individual, etc. And what they'll be able to do is upload, for lack of a better word, documents from their coursework that demonstrate their growth or their pride in a particular SVO. And then we've begun to work on reflective sentence starters. So we'll be asking students, how does document X show your growth as a communicator? So there are those kind of that language from those progressions that we've created. I articulate thoughts, feelings, information, etc. So students will identify how they've grown as a community individual, as a collaborator, etc. The next steps that we have are really talking with students and introducing the digital portfolio to them. So that's been happening kind of organically in our ELA classes, but next week Ms. Lieberman and I are going to go into every science class in 6th and 7th grade, and I'm sure I don't need to teach them for 40 minutes the digital portfolio. They're going to get it like that, but in my mind I've planned a 40-minute lesson, but they're going to get it really quickly. Our teachers began working with Ms. Lieberman in September at professional development. Every faculty member has had exposed to training and professional development in digital portfolios. Now we have, this year, the goal is teachers to get acquainted with the idea, with the notion that next year everyone in the building will be using digital portfolios to drive those student-led conferences. After we introduce that digital portfolio to students, we'll also look for continued faculty input and then roll this idea out to parents so they can see how we're going to change really the layout of what a parent-teacher conference is and put students in the room to drive those conversations. We believe really deeply at North Shore Middle School about students owning their growth and owning their areas of strengths and focus for the future. This really is, I think, a pretty innovative idea, and while I work at the middle school, I think it would be really powerful to look at, from a K-12 progression, a digital portfolio, how do I grow over time? You know, how cool would that be for a 12th grader to be able to reflect on their work in kindergarten and see how they've moved over time? So that's, you know, my goal right now is grades 6, 7, and 8, but this really does have implications for really shifting what we do in education K-12. So thank you very much for your support, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. And as you were describing that, I couldn't help but contrast that with the literacy folders that we were currently using with the collection of work from K through 12, and just the more dynamic nature of what we're talking about and assessing that, and how we need a more dynamic system, a vehicle to capture that. And that really goes to the external assessment point. How do we know that our students are growing in the SVOs and that they're going towards those more complex ends of the progression to where we want them to get, so that we see the benefits in their life, in their academic work, and after high school. And so we are going to show you an example from 2nd grade. We also are currently developing one and have one working in 4th grade, and we're looking at how to develop more performance-based assessments that show that growth over time. So I'm going to introduce now Ms. Deborah Small to show her example from 2nd grade, a capstone project that's common across 2nd grade in the entire district.
Last year at a meeting of administrators, we were thinking what could be some powerful next steps that we could take to take our visions from the strategic plan and the shared valued outcomes and bring them to life in our classrooms. And we came up with the idea of a capstone project. And we decided we would have 2nd graders try it out for us this year. And we had certain elements that we thought should be part of it. It was very important that it involved choice. Students need to choose what they were going to study. There was going to be a true inquiry process to it, where students would generate their own questions, and then those questions would lead them to further questions. It would be a transdisciplinary project, not limited to one discipline, but developing skills that the students could bring into all their work and all the coursework that they would do. And when we thought about the shared valued outcomes, we wanted to focus on growth. How will the children grow within certain SVOs that we could highlight within the project during their work in the project? And it would be something that they would share out with the world through a performance or exhibition where they could show what they learned and share it with people. And we thought about audience, and we said we don't want the only audience for this project to be the students' teachers. We also want them to find an authentic audience. Maybe it's something they need to share with other students. Maybe it's parents. Maybe it's business leaders or government workers or whatever it is. So we wanted to give them that opportunity to do a really meaningful project.
So Carol and I met with our second grade teachers and other groups that worked with second grade, like the librarians, SWES teachers, ENL teachers, special education teachers. And we said to them, okay, talk to us. This is a vision. How can we make this a reality? Well, the first thing that they thought about as they started to look at it is they said, you know, we're talking about second graders. So as they start to do research, we need to make sure that it will be accessible and appropriate for them. And if it's a written resource, that it will be readable for them. So they came back and they said, Cal and Deborah, we thought about it. Can we limit the scope a little bit and say that there will be choice, but it will be within the topic of animals, because then we can line up a lot of resources, and there's so many choices that students can have within animals. And we said, okay, that sounds good. So what are your ideas to what to do with it? And then we were so excited because the teachers got together and they collaborated and they came up with some very creative ideas. One thing that was important to the teachers was that even though this was transdisciplinary work, that it would be developed across the year through work that students were doing. And they didn't want it to just be an end-of-the-year project. They wanted it to be something where the kids grew all year long. So they said that they were going to have like 3 little check-in points for it with activities and growth at each stage. So at the beginning of the year, and this was around December of this year, the students would be creating an all-about book. They do that anyway as part of their reading and writing work, but usually it's all about something they already know a lot about, and they're teaching, like let's say a kid does ballet. They might do a book all about ballet. But in this case, their final all-about book would be based on research that they were doing and nonfiction reading and explorations that they would be doing, and it would be about their animal. So that's what they've done so far. Then, as they developed further questions about their animals, they would, when we got to the poetry unit, they would take that new research they had and put it into an animal research poem. And then it really is going to get exciting this spring when they're in their persuasive writing unit, because they're going to do a persuasive project. And this persuasive project is going to advocate for their animal in some way, and it could be any number of ways that they go about it. They could do a play, they could do a poster, they could do a song, they could do a speech, they could have posters hanging all over the place. They will figure out what suits their audience. And along the way, they'll have different audiences. Some of these projects will be shared with other classmates in their grade, in other grades, with parents, and as I said earlier, with authentic audiences that might be appropriate. Here's an example of one student's project from their All About book. This student wrote all about orcas, and here I am highlighting her cover page, her table of contents based on her questions of what she wanted to learn about orcas. And then this is just one sample page from her project in which she has this, her chapter is about hunting, and this reproduces exactly, since it's a little hard to read, I typed there exactly what she wrote, reproducing her spelling and everything else, there it is. So she was focused on how orcas hunt, and she shared a lot of information about what they eat there. We chose 2 SVO sections in particular to focus on through this project. One thing that the teachers chose was within the thinking SVO, we would look at questioning. We wanted to help the students learn how to develop powerful questions. And we want to move them to the point on the SVO progression where they're asking questions to explore new concepts. Within communication, we picked 2 sub-skills, planning communication and reflecting on communication. Within planning communication, they're going to consider the type of communication and the language of choice. So once I know what audience I want to communicate with, what project will best get my message across to the audience? How can I present it best? And then they'll reflect on it. What was the impact? How did my audience react? So that's something that they will be working on. And they'll be doing it during the year using some rubrics that our teachers have now taken SVO progression language and they've put it into kid-friendly language. So, as they were thinking about question types, they wanted the students to understand different depths of questions. So they came up with a term, which is kind of cute, a Google question, which is a question that's right there. So for example, what are the parts of a honeybee? Or what do honeybees eat? Or that type of question. How do honeybees make honey? You can go, you can find the information. And then they had a progression of how students might move along that in terms of their ability to locate the information. Then they said there's another level of question we want the kids to understand. It's analytical questions. We want them to answer bigger questions like, how do bees affect other animals and plants? Or how might their disappearance affect other animals and plants? And then they wanted to move them to also opinion questions. What should we do to help the honeybee, for example? So those are the types of questions that our students will be engaged in. The teachers help design lessons together. So this is a sample of one lesson. They had a lesson focusing on questioning, and what they wanted kids to understand was the difference between those types of questions. So kids were engaged in sorts, where they had a whole bunch of questions, and they were sorting the questions and thinking what type of questions were they. And then there's the application piece. Now that we've thought about those types of questions, let's start building your ability to ask those questions about your animal. What are your types of questions that you want to ask? And then there's the piece as they communicate and share their findings. So we have this rubric, which is a communication rubric. This is in 2 pages so that it's readable. So this is the top of the rubric. So the students were looking at making sure that their opinion is expressed clearly, that they've targeted their audience, and that they've picked a project format that suits the audience. And you see how it goes up as you go along. So, for example, we move like in project format from a list of possible project ideas to picking a project that best fits the audience intended and that extends to the world beyond us. Going on again to this page, that's that same line, and then the bottom line is, what was the impact on your audience? So, did the audience not really understand? Did they have to ask a lot of follow-up questions? Were they confused? Did they begin to understand? Were they actually inspired and reacting, wow, you know, I never thought about that. I think when I go home, I'm going to change this behavior based on whatever we need to do for the animal. So those are questions that they were thinking about. So it is our hope that through this activity, our students will understand a lot more about questioning and a lot more about communication and a lot more about the research project, that it will be a very exciting opportunity for them to have choice and to allow their own inquiry process to drive their learning.
So thank you. I know that was a lengthy presentation, and I want to thank everybody who was here, the elementary principals, Ms. Small, Mr. Dennis, Mr. Ficini, who had to leave, for your time in preparing for this and really showcasing the work. It is a true collaboration. Different administrators and school leaders and different groups of teachers contribute to this work, and it really is a area of multiple causation. There are so many different angles to this, and we're working on taking those to the next level of sophistication. One special project that I wanted to mention is this summer, we will be putting the progressions into student-friendly language. So we'll be inviting teachers, students from every grade level, and parents to come together and to rewrite those progressions in a language that is clear and understandable to them. Also wanted to mention at the end of April, the Tri-State Consortium will be coming back for their revisit. 2 years after an initial visit, they come back and they sit down with us for half a day, and we present the work we've done in that 2 years, and they will give us more feedback. So at that time, we'll present that back to you. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. That was incredibly informative, and the breakout boxes, of course, were very fun. Yes. Trustees, do you have questions or comments on the shared valued outcome presentation?
Did we learn how honeybees make honey? I feel like that was missing from, no?
We'll have to ask our students.
Okay.
Any other questions about orcas or SVOs? I will just say, just because it was near the end of the presentation, that we've talked so much about student choice and voice, like across the whole strategic planning effort. Like, we've been talking about it for a couple of years at this point, but it was very interesting to hear it come up here in terms of not just being able to choose a medium that works for the student, but moving further down the road towards, you know, how students start to think about what's a good choice for this effort. So I really enjoyed hearing about that. Thank you. Trustee.
So it seems from the presentation that, I know this was really primarily at the elementary school to begin with, where we were looking for a common language for the different elementary schools. It was a problem that existed. And it seems like it's moving up into the middle school. From what I've seen of the high school and this presentation, it doesn't seem to be at the high school. I mean, if you look at it more as the IB learner profile, which is somewhat comparable, but the language of an SVO doesn't seem to be incorporated into the high school curriculum. Is there a plan to do that?
I do think that was a recommendation from the Tri-State Consortium, and part of the plan in addressing that is the curriculum alignment that I'll be working on with the directors, and that will involve specifically, and this is another door that the learning progressions unlock, because you can say, we're going to, in Algebra 2, we're going to integrate problem solving, but without a specific definition and pieces of what problem solving actually looks like, how do you mesh that in a way that's specific, intentional, and that you can measure? So that the progressions being completed will allow us to merge that into the curriculum map in a way that doesn't create more that needs to be taught, but that impacts the way learning takes place, and that can also be assessed. So it will become a part of the courses in effect.
And that was actually my second question, which is not limited to the high school. It's really overall. So we understand that, we have a short elementary school day, and we're packing a lot into that day. And there's more and more responsibilities that are being placed on teachers with state testing and reporting the paperwork, just from the time my children were in elementary school to the time current people have their children in elementary school, has really multiplied significantly. So I'm wondering, when we're placing another responsibility, another layer on the teachers on following the SVOs and articulating that, is that something that is causing additional stress on the teacher and on the teacher's time and on planning, and how are we integrating that with all their other responsibilities, and do we think in some way it is detracting from the ability of the teachers to teach all the different subjects? Because elementary teachers are very different than high school teachers who are subject specific.
Yeah, that was such a great description of all the dynamics that we work with and struggle with, and have to involve the teachers in the decision-making process on that. I know I keep defaulting to the progressions, but here too is another door that's unlocked, because just in my own experiences in working with the elementary teachers, when we started talking about this, when you talk about we have to teach problem solving, we have to teach communication, that seems so huge and nebulous at the same time.
Yes,
and
it's
so,
like another layer,
Yeah.
right, that they have to get, is all I can think about. I think about, different colors being stacked up, and that's just another layer on top of their already kind of full plate.
So what the progressions allow us to do is find that natural fit that amplifies the learning of that content area, that really enhances it, that doesn't just add more. It's not a content coverage thing, and which can be embedded in the process of learning. And that's really important. So practicing the SVOs in how you learn literacy, in how you learn elementary science, that's the key way, because it will enhance that learning. It's a way of working through the curriculum that already exists, that aligns with our values, in a process that aligns with our values. I do think, to the point about the process presentations, the how of learning that was discussed in those two presentations, I think really does show this, and that's something I want to highlight more too. But those concerns you're raising are very important, and we are concerned about that. But by having the progressions, we are able to give pieces of the big whole that are manageable, and then we share those pieces as an entire system, and then we measure how students are growing in all of those pieces. So each of us takes a piece.
So when we're taking these teachers out of the classroom, we're bringing them in over the summer, and we're training them in the SVOs, are we in any way depriving them of other and different professional development opportunities?
Yeah.
Because now their professional development may be being subsumed by SVO, and then we have teachers workshop, I mean, I wouldn't want to be an elementary teacher these days. There's a lot going on.
I'll take that. So we as a system have embraced these values, right, and dispositions that we want, teachers, students to know and be able to do, and so they drive the process work of our program. None of the SVOs, the IB learner profile, the characteristics that are there are, I think, arguably indisputable skills that we want children to have when they leave our system. So when we commit to those values, we have to commit resources to making sure that teachers know how to use them. And over the past 2.5 years, we've made a commitment as a leadership team to make sure that we are doing them more systematically, employing them more systematically. And you see that, I hope that you are seeing that in the presentations that we bring to the board. So to your point, we have some choices about what we have to make about professional development, and teachers have choices about the PD that they have to make, but nothing is, because we are engaged in this work, the work of the curriculum isn't compromised as a result of that. But we have to be able to, if we're going to commit to doing this work, these 6 SVOs, then we have to commit our PD and our time to making sure teachers know how to employ them, and they do that in a way that is comparable and common across the system.
Right. I think my point really was more that, on top of this is another PD, and then they still have to get trained on the new math. The math program has changed.
Absolutely.
They've been trained on Columbia's Teachers Workshop. There are probably plenty of other professional development opportunities, and it's just another one, and I don't know if we're sacrificing anything else by spending time on, because they have to do it, apparently, from what everyone is saying. If it's going to be the way we're teaching, and it's going to be the common language across the elementary schools, then every teacher needs to be trained on this. So if they're being taken out of the classroom or working on this or spending their summers on this, then they must be foregoing some other professional development opportunity.
The way we're approaching this is not by pulling out. It really is integrated to the curriculum, so it is a part of curriculum trainings that are happening, curriculum that's being written in the content areas. I think the innovation teams is a good model because in addition to it not becoming burdensome, we also want faculty to be excited of it and have autonomy and some creativity in that so that they feel good about that. Also, that they are designers in this process as well. And the progressions are a roadmap within that, but there are a million different ways you can move a student along a specific part of a progression. So I think of the PD in this very differently, and that is that it's creative PD, that adults are driving through choice, and we've talked a lot about that on the PDC. We actually just met yesterday to talk about that. So it's different from the standard PD that we might think of. It's really more teacher driven through the creative process, and we have resources and guides so that we have a common language and a common map direction.
Mary Ann and I are fortunate enough to have been here long enough that we were on the board when we were deciding on what the 6 SVOs were going to be, and it really was a remarkable process that the administration led the entire district through in every sense, and the tremendous consensus because of that very deliberate process that we had between the administrators and the faculty and the board on that these were important goals and what exactly that they were going to be. But there's no doubt that I think you're expressing the thought that like there's only so much time in the day.
Yes.
And so I guess we should probably just say that, like with anything, should there be some anxiety about something you're not able to get to,
Absolutely.
we'd like to hear about it.
That's exactly
We're
what I was
open
saying.
to it. Yes.
I wasn't denigrating the SVOs. All I was saying is,
That
there
you're
are
just
choices to be
being
made.
realistic about
Right.
Because I think what we've seen through these presentations and through what you've given us today is that, yes, there's only so much time in the day, and yes, they need to learn math and reading, and all the skills that they're going to be using. But I think what you've shown us and what your previous presentations have backed up is that by inculcating the SVOs into the curriculum, both in the teacher level and with students, it facilitates better learning in those areas that we need them to be learning, and that it's the catalyst for success that we've seen in the presentations. And I think that's the reason we're doing this. We're not saying we want X, Y, Z because those are inherently good. I think what you're saying is we want them because they're inherently good, but also because that's the kind of learning they're going to need to do both at the elementary level and middle school and beyond and throughout their lives. That you want someone to be a problem solver, you want someone to be a communicator, and that if they learn early on, that we've already seen that's what's helping them do well in math and do well in those tests. But it also helps us, to some degree, end up with Regeneron scholars, and I think that's where it leads.
I think the administrative team would agree with that. You know, 10 years ago when we talked about curriculum and curriculum articulation, we talk about, okay, do you teach child labor in 4th grade and 8th grade? Are you being redundant? We think of it in terms of content, but now we think of it in terms of process, and that's much more powerful. Where the SVOs are giving students the skills to learn, to claim their own learning, to extend their own learning, making them more independent. So, and that we do want to collect data to verify that that is the case and that's happening, you know, across the board. Yeah.
And so along those lines, one of the things the Tri-States didn't mention was about better community education about what we're doing, even though it was the two things that came up in our parent and student surveys the most. So you mentioned parent, right? We know we need it. They didn't necessarily see that, but clearly that message the progressions and the skills that we're teaching can be better communicated. You mentioned Parent University, which has tremendous value, but I also know from my days on the guidance review that one of the things we have learned in this district is that the poll model doesn't really work. They're asking people to come to us, but that getting that information out proactively to people who aren't necessarily going to come for a parent university is something to keep in mind also, that we need to figure out a way to communicate that in a more conversational way, what we're doing without necessarily requiring folks to commit. Because those folks who go to the parent university, they're going to come out of it ready to go.
Yeah.
But that's a fraction.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris.
There's been, recently I've seen cheerleading on Facebook about the parent universities. Like, people will post, this is coming on Monday, I went to the last one, you should all really go, kind of
Good, I'm glad.
stuff. It's been very encouraging to see.
Good.
I think that's the SVOs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chris. Good job.
Yes, ma'am.
Given the hour, and I know that there are probably a number of people in the audience who are here to share some thoughts with us, I'm wondering if we can just do a with the budget development, if it's possible.
And the public comment?
Yes.
It's definitely possible. Would you like to make a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor of amending the agenda to move up public comment? Thank you. So amended. All right, next on our agenda, look at that, it's comments from the public. So if anyone is here that would like to address the board, and we suspect that may be the case, if you would kindly approach the podium, if you would give us your name and your town of residence, the board is absolutely here to hear what you have to say.
Good evening. My name is Adam Soteriadis. I live in Glenhead. I have 2 children in the district. My daughter Mary is your salutatorian this year. She's captain of your field hockey team. She's one of Megan's academic lacrosse All-Americans. My son Danny is a freshman. Okay. Like you, Mr. Commander, I've dedicated my life to physical education and athletics. I'd like to start by saying, I'm very impressed here tonight. This is my first board meeting, and the rubrics that I saw, the processes that the teachers have gone through to measure assessment, come up with benchmarks, move towards success, and then celebrate success. I can't tell you that Dr. Mordecai and Ms. Millman are 2 teachers I hear about in my household every evening. They had a profound effect on my daughter, and I applaud you for that. With that being said, about athletics. Okay, Mr. Commander, between you and I, we have 65 years experience. I consider us the professionals in the room. These other people are lay people. I went to the senior play. The senior play was phenomenal. I think there were about 5 theater students that guided these seniors into putting on a first-rate production. You don't have to be a theater person to recognize talent. Talent is talent. We all recognize it. It was phenomenal. Academically phenomenal. When it comes to athletics, that's the other side of the pillow. Please don't think I'm here to offend anybody. I'm here to be your ally. As someone who has dedicated their life to helping students through athletics and physical education, I believe that we can do better. Now this evening, we talked about achievement. We talked about assessment. We talked about establishing benchmarks so we can replicate the success. That's what we celebrate here. That's why we're so good. That's why you have Keaton and Kira, you know, at the pinnacle of science research. Dr. Mordecai is wonderful. The field hockey coach is as good as Dr. Mordecai. He just does it out there on the back turf. But education is education. And if you would have seen those students coming out as athletes at the beginning of the year, they were down here on the rubric. But by the end of the season, they were highly achieving. And the only difference was the teacher, was the coach. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. I have 5 more years and I can retire. I'm a professional at this. Coaching is a very political business. It's a very difficult business. I've had ulcers doing it. The last great rubric I saw was a 2nd grade teacher that came up here. And in the bottom corner over there it said, "Can I inspire you to change something?" Do you remember that rubric, or am I the only one that appreciates rubrics because I have to write them? Okay, that's what I want to do tonight. I want to take you down there to that corner box. I want to be your friend. I want to inspire you to change something. School districts are going to be in litigious situations. That's the nature of the beast. You're going to get sued. It happens. Not everybody's going to be happy with everything. When it comes down to parents and their children and sports, people get their feelings hurt. Some people with the means bring lawsuits. It happens. So this policy that you have where you can't be on the travel team and then work for North Shore is only hurting the North Shore kids. And I'll be specific as to why. John has 8 all-county players right now. No, I might have gotten it wrong. It's late. Let's say he has 8 all-county players. 4 from Nassau, 4 from Suffolk. Last year he had 2 All-Americans. Last month I spoke with Dr. Gializzi. We talked about the college admissions process and how families and students, it's stressful and how they have to jump through hoops. When I went to the guy came from the Princeton Review last year, he said the #1 concern for parents is how are we going to pay for college? John's in a position to help a lot of people with that. He's got his kids going to 2 Ivy League schools where the acceptance rate is below 5% next year. He's helped my daughter get on a short list for a school that has underneath the 5% acceptance rate. And if she is hopefully admitted, we're all going to celebrate that. But I can tell you honestly, the difference between her being waitlisted or accepted is his relationship with the coach. So I'm asking you to rethink this policy. You have lawyers. They're smart people. If someone brings a lawsuit against you, you're worried about a lawsuit that didn't happen yet. And the fallout from that, the collateral damage of that is deep underclassmen. I have nothing vested in this. I'm just here because I have an ethical obligation as a phys ed teacher, as a coach, to try to go down there in the corner of the rubric and change a line, change something for the better of everybody. If he can help children get into schools that are almost impossible to get into, and help some of the economic burden be lifted from their families, you need to rethink this policy. Okay? My younger son is an All-American. He's a two-time football All-American. He's not even 15 years old yet. He's 6'1", he's 215 pounds. He goes to St. Anthony's. Dr. Giarizzi and I have spoken about how he's the smartest kid at St. Anthony's because of what we've done here academically to prepare him, and how it doesn't compare. It's not even a different book in the library. It's a different planet. This is a much better institution. When you go out and you want to buy something or go to a restaurant or stay somewhere, don't you look at a Yelp review? It's called social phenomenon. It's the best kind of advertising you can get. The upperclassman told my son, you can't go to North Shore. Not if you want to succeed with sports. When you don't have lights on your field, when you don't have a second AstroTurf field, when you don't provide your students with brand name jerseys, we give them Badger jerseys. Everybody else is playing in Nike and Under Armour. I buy all the equipment for 4,000 people at my high school. The difference between a Nike jersey and a Badger jersey is $13. You have 300 kids playing sports. If you had a second field with lights, and you put lights on the first field, and you opened up your gym at night, and you went downstairs to your weight room, and you modernized it, so it didn't look like it was from 1979, children would be here. I read in the local paper that you were part of a health initiative, so kids would make good choices, they'd have proper avenues. If you ever go down to MacArthur High School, I went down there this summer with a lacrosse coach. The lights are on, all the equipment's out, mom and dads walk around the field, kids practice on the equipment that's out there. MacArthur isn't just a high school, it's like a community center, you know? I'm hoping that I could be an asset for you guys to help move North Shore forward athletically. I'm not saying that you have to be St. Anthony's. I'm not saying that you have to have a $20 million indoor field to practice on. But what I am saying is we can do a little bit better for our students. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen coaches be fired by school boards, and it's always the same story. Someone on the board had hard feelings, or somebody was friends with somebody on the board and had hard feelings, and coaches are let go. So, you know, the last thing I want to say to you, because we've been here a long time, is please rethink this policy. Sit down with your lawyers and draft something that works for you on a case-by-case basis. Because I can promise you, if you ever had a student bring a lawsuit against you, and it went to court, which it won't, and you stood in front of a jury, and you said, you know, I'm sorry, Mary just wasn't good enough to make this team. She didn't have the skills to play a varsity sport. She's a great kid, but she just didn't have what it takes. The gentleman has a master's degree. The gentleman is on the United States Olympic Developmental Committee for Field Hockey. If that person didn't think that you had what it takes to be on the field, you know, life's full of disappointments. And unfortunately, by enabling our children, we are also disabling them for the challenges in their life. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. Hope I wasn't too long-winded. The last thing I'd like to say to you is, please invest more in sports. Please modernize your facilities. Give the kids something to be proud of. My son would love to return to North Shore and go to class at a better academic institution and be alongside his friends. There's just one more thing. I'm sorry, I forgot. All right. Have some of your students on a sports committee. have some of the kids who play varsity sports sit down and ask them questions. If we put you in a Badger jersey, and your field doesn't have lights, and you don't have a second AstroTurf field, and your weight room looks like it's from 1979, are we sending you the message that we just don't care? I've asked the kids that. They've all said yes. You guys are wonderful at what you want to be wonderful at. I'm just asking you to do what you need to do to make your sports competitive and top-notch like everything else that you have going on here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Conklin. I'm a parent from Greendale. I have 4 children in the district, 2 have graduated and played D1 sports. My statement's gonna be a lot shorter, and I like George a heck of a lot, because I'm on the same page. And
I apologize.
I'm nowhere near as articulate as you either. I'm a little more blunt. I'm just gonna make a statement, and maybe I'll shoot a question out at the board. If they could oblige me with an answer, I would appreciate it. If not, no big deal. I believe the board's made a mistake adopting that clause in August of 19 regarding coaching. The clause effectively terminates a coaching position or excludes other North Shore coaches from being involved in outside teams if any student is a member of the same. It would seem as though in an effort to appear impartial when making on-field coaching decisions, maybe playing time, I'm not sure, because we know the monetary issue is out of it because the individual does not receive a salary from that. We made a rule that is far too broad. You'd have us believe that having our children play on a travel team or attend a camp that one of our coaches may be working at is somehow improper or a conflict of interest. I don't see it. It's not a fact that playing on a club team or a travel team guarantees you a spot on the high school team. What earns you the spot is hard work and God-given ability. If we read and study more, and we become better students and obtain better grades, if we practice more and improve our sport through repetition, we accomplish the same thing. It's not the coach itself, it's what's put into it that gets you on the field, or better grades, and what institution you may go to in the future. This is not some pay-to-play situation, and nor is there proof of some conflict of interest. It's a real shame the board has taken, to me, the easy way out. Instead of doing what's right for our students, you've done what's easy for yourselves and played CYA by throwing this back to district council. As we spoke with about a month ago, that's where we left off. Issues of this type, whether it be tutoring, coaching, or directing, will never be black and white, yet you've tried to make it that way. Instead of putting a policy in place where there's a way to monitor the possibility of an indiscretion, you've made a decision that may effectively remove our school from being a competitive factor in high school sports. I think the board should start doing what's right for our students. As we place top priority on our high academic standards, we should do the same with high athletic standards. Thank you. My question is, does anybody on the board see themselves as an advocate for individuals that play sports? Does anyone have children that play sports on the varsity level, on a club team, or at the collegiate level? If there's influence in this room, you have the most influence, not the coach. You have the most influence. I would imagine as a coach, I'd be tiptoeing if the president of the board had a son that's on the team or might not be making the team. I think the coaches are the ones that are stepping back. They don't have the power that you do. You have the power to make this right. The coaches can't make it right. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Hi, Sally Baylor from Glenhead. I have a 7th, 8th grader who's here and a 9th grader. And thank you again for the time to talk again. I hope that our persistence demonstrates the importance of this matter to us. And you know, at this point, obviously, again, it's not something that's on social media on. We are a very small fraction that represents a much wider viewpoint of the rest of the community. A couple of points I just wanted to make. You know, when looking at the specific wording, you know, the tutoring policy is specific and limits tutoring for fees and for children in their specific class. But the wording of the sports coaching tutoring clause is silent as to fees. So surely it's somewhat subjective in whether a non-profit organisation could be seen as being in breach of this policy. And also comments the other parents also made tonight, but I just want to reiterate something I said to you last time, that you know, let's not disadvantage those students who choose and make the choice to invest their time and passion all year round. And that only brings benefits to the rest of the school. When I was telling my other children who were all coming here tonight and talking about this, it's very hard to explain to them what the board's decision is and what it's based on. They don't see the logic behind it, they don't see the practice. So my ask of you would be, can you share with us, the community, your rationale for making that policy decision, or you can share with us why you've decided not to amend the policy if that's going to be the case going forward. Thank you again for your time.
My name is Barbara Nelson. I'm a parent from Glenhead. Last weekend, John took 9 girls to Pennsylvania to qualify for nationals. One of those, he has a set team that he has with his Lasting Legacy Club. There was a player that wasn't playing up to par. She's traveled to Florida with him. She's been a consistent player for him for 6 years. He did not put her on the roster for nationals because she wasn't playing up to par. There was no favoritism. If anything, I felt that this just showed where he was as a coach. And he's not out to be your friend. He's not out to be in a relationship of a relative, but he wants to be a good coach. He wants to build a good team. He wants to take his team to counties or to championship, which is what we did last year. We got very close to the championship position. Denying skilled coaching to our children is just a shame for the children. Like Mike had said and Adam had said, that a lot of kids nowadays, they can't afford colleges, they rely on other ways to get into colleges other than academics, and John provides them with an avenue of athletics. The other thing that I wanted to say was that the consistent message tonight when we were talking about the SVOs, a lot of powerful words: growth, success, resources, and providing the resources for the children to succeed. We have a junior varsity coach that is not familiar with the sport of field hockey at all. She was the coach for the junior varsity team, and the girls didn't learn much this year. However, John would be such a valuable resource for the children to learn proper skills, and to put somebody into a position where these kids are not going to benefit athletically from a sport, it's just an injustice to the children. I would like the board to reconsider their thoughts on John as the coach for the varsity, and not just for field hockey. I think this is across the board. I know that there are other sports, and like Adam had said, I feel like in the North Shore School District, we do pride ourselves on academics. We have strong theater, we have strong robotics programs, but when it comes to the sports, it doesn't seem that they get that much support as the other areas of interest. So I would just like to say thank you for your time, and if we could reconsider this, I think it would be very important for the children in the future.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Okay, we will close.
I'm sorry, I would like to say one more thing. I'm just curious, and for the other parents in the position where your child is, my daughter does play field hockey. She is one of the lasting legacy players. She started on the varsity team with Coach Huggins as a freshman. So she was on the varsity team, and her skills were identified by Coach Huggins before John even came to the school. When she plays field hockey, people in the stands do say, oh, I wonder who she plays for in addition to the school, because she has gained a lot of skill from John. As a parent of the child who plays the club team, I would love for her to come here and to go to school and to also get that quality coaching at school that she does on her club team. The impact that this is going to have on my daughter and for the other lasting legacy players, I find that to be an injustice, a personal injustice for not just me, but for my daughter herself. I feel as though she is being not punished, but denied the opportunity of quality coaching because of this conflict of interest. Again, I would like to also just reiterate the fact that John is a fair coach. He's a fair person across the board. I've seen he's done many things that I don't agree with, as well as do agree with. But again, as a parent of a child who is going to not gain future skills and benefit from a coach that is not up to par with John's coaching standards, I find that that's an injustice to my daughter, and I just wonder how how the other parents would feel. I think we should all consider that as well. Yeah, thank you.
If you would, please. Thank you.
Come again.
You're welcome anytime. We're here.
I wanted to ask you, did you know Carol Rose while you were working? Of course. I assume that you did. Carol Rose is really the person that put travel teams on the map on Long Island. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah. Okay, when we were all in high school, there was no such thing as a travel team. If you would have come home and told your parents you need X amount of dollars to go play on a travel team, they would have said, go rake leaves. You know, but that's not the culture today. When you look at a travel team and you see a teacher working for the travel team, you immediately know that this is someone that people trust their children with. It validates the travel team. So on the landscape of Long Island, several teachers have relationships with travel teams. At my son's high school, it's called the Lacrosse Mafia. If you don't play for Express or you don't play for 91, you're told that you will not see the field for St. Anthony's, and they're the #1 lacrosse team in the nation right now. Now, we don't have that kind of money. So when I had a conversation with the athletic director about it, he said, let's see about that. So when most of the parents perceive that you have to play for this team or that team to get on the field, that's when you ask the decision makers, that's not the case. They don't want to have this conflict of interest arise. And the second thing is, you don't have enough field hockey players to create a conflict of interest, which speaks to a bigger thing. Meg, how many upperclassmen do you have on your roster every year? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. So you have 12 juniors and seniors every year on your team? Okay. I was going to say it was less. So I would ask you to look at your varsity rosters and identify how many underclassmen are on that varsity roster. Because a varsity team is basically juniors and seniors. Okay? Mr. Mayor, how do you feel about bringing middle school kids up to play varsity sport? What's your stance on that?
I have to point out that public comment is generally, the board's here to,
No, I'm sorry, she's the only other professional in the room, that's why I asked.
and I understand, but
Okay.
we don't generally
Okay.
direct
No,
questions to
the
specific board
reason-
members.
The reason that I'm inquiring is we regularly bring up underclassmen because we don't have a significant amount of upperclassmen to fill the roster spots. And good athletic director or coach will tell you that's indicative of a problem in your athletic department. Juniors and seniors should not be stepping away. Kids with free time isn't always the best thing. I'd rather have my kids on the field with an adult coming home tired and going to bed after they do their homework than doing something else. Again, thank you for your time, and I hope that as we move forward, I can get to that last second grade rubric where I can hopefully get you to change your mind about something and make some progress. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Peter, Madam President, can I just speak to the parents, because they did direct a question in terms of our experience with our children.
I thought you
So
might
just
wish to.
in the spirit of transparency, and I'm not going to speak for the board, I'm speaking as a parent, and some of you might know, my daughter, Diana Vizza, was a student athlete here at North Shore. She graduated with Maddie Conklin. They actually compete in the same Ivy League. Different sports, however. Diana ran for the cross-country and track teams. She was an All-American, two-time state champion. She broke multiple New York State records. Thankfully, she is an incredible student, academic, that afforded her the opportunity to be recruited by 6 of the 8 Ivy League teams, actually 7. She didn't even ask Harvard to take a look at her, but she ended up at Dartmouth, which has been a wonderful fit for her, and she's seen a lot of success. So I can empathize with how you feel about this particular policy. I won't comment on the policy, but I just wanted you all to be aware of my particular experience as a parent of a student athlete and the recruiting process. Now, just to make another point, she was coached by a teacher here who's is a well-known track and field and cross-country coach. He's on the winningest streak in Long Island, and probably there's another coach in New York, but which says something. But Diana was very lucky to be able to have a teacher and a coach who coached her at the same time he was employed by the district. So she never had to. We never, as a family, had to pay for coaching or a travel team. New York running community is very strongly public school based.
Sarah, I don't want to get into a back and forth, and I appreciate your comments, and I would be available to speak to you at any time about philosophy regarding high school athletics, but please realize that I will be speaking from myself and not the board. I understand what you're saying. You make some very legitimate points. Things ring in my head, and I'm willing to talk to you about those things. I'm not sure this is an appropriate place to have that discussion. Thank you.
But yes, so a significant number of the board members do have personal experiences with their children playing on teams or, as you know, Joanna's professional experience. Any other public comment? Thank you. We greatly appreciate everyone's willingness to come and to spend time with our rubrics and to tell us your experiences and how this has impacted you, because this was a policy change that we made, obviously not for field hockey, but the board systematically reviews all of their policies, and when this one came up, was working on efforts to decrease conflicts of interest across the entire district community in all respects. Arts departments, athletics, and in the academics, and of course, part of that inherent to policies is an effort to be as consistent and fair as we can, so we appreciate being able to hear about the specific impact that you guys are experiencing. So we appreciate your time. Do you have anything?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. What happened to, we had students on the athletic advisory committee.
We did. I
And
don't,
that's
it
something
hasn't,
we've talked
It hasn't-
about.
It hasn't met recently, but yes,
Revising.
the
There
athletic-
were students,
Yeah.
we had, that was part of the recommendation when we did the athletic review. Oh my God, I feel like the board historian, like 4 or 5 years ago.
We did, the last time the athletic advisory met, we did have student representation.
yeah.
Right, but so.
We haven't convened that committee this year.
That's on me. I've been just overwhelmed with bond-related materials. I'm co-chairing that this year.
And I would agree with you, the
But
impact
right,
is
that
on
would-
the kids, so
We've been very
They should have a seat at the table.
consistently involving students with
And all of
all
our committees.
kinds of committees, even like curriculum committees. We would certainly involve them
Shared
in,
decision.
They're on
exactly,
everything.
athletic
They're on
committees.
everything.
And we have in the past.
So we should convene the athletic advisory committee. I'm not on it, but I am on
Neither am
the
I.
stadium lights committee. And we should get some, I don't know if we have students appointed to that. So we really need, it's January.
I think Megan could find us some outstanding student athletes to represent.
I don't doubt it.
But we have to
Okay.
select a couple. We had 2, I think, the last time, right?
2.
I'm sure we'll make progress with that. Wait, we're gonna talk about the budget, come on. We've still got pages of, we've got pages of agenda. Oh, okay, anyway, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I'm going to be out of town for about a week, but
Discussion B. Update on the budget development process.
It is 10:20.
I'd like to make a motion. I'm sorry, before we discuss this.
Motion.
Can we discuss LAC? Cheryl's been here for like 2 hours also.
Yes.
Can we move up the LAC
Yes,
conversation?
yes, the LAC should be, yes.
I'd like to make a
So we
motion to move
don't
up the LAC
kill Cheryl.
conversation to now.
I'll second. Questions? All in favor? So moved. Okay, Black.
So Cheryl doesn't have a speaking role here, but she wanted to come and see
She would
what
like to hear.
what we're doing.
Yeah, go ahead. Fine.
So, just to refresh the public, we, trustee Vizza had brought up an old business, that we, as a board, did not give LAC specific, I guess, direction about what we'd like him to cover this year. LAC has been very focused on the legislative breakfast, which I think is official as of, Betty, would you say, maybe?
Moments ago.
No, I was gonna say 4 hours ago, but it was 7 hours ago. That it's going to, that we have good attendance coming. It's going to be on February 8th from 9 to 11 in the morning, somewhere in the district, location to be determined. I don't know if we want to publicly say who's coming yet, but there are a lot of legislators who are on board. We had a good response. Pardon?
Yes.
Yes, and we will be meeting again on the 29th, which is a week from yesterday, to kind of finalize our questions, the format, follow up on what we discussed at our last meeting on the 15th. And the purpose of this conversation was that when we're through the legislative breakfast, talk about what's next for LAC.
So part of that could be helping get legislation passed that helps with LIPA. So legislation has been drafted and exists, but getting it passed could require significant public outreach and support, and that's really gets back to the origins of LAC, as far as I can tell.
Well, LAC was created before that situation, but when the LIPA issue came on the radar,
It
it
was-
basically
they were-
subsumed LAC. Yeah,
It was huge.
it was huge.
So there's that. Barring that, we should discuss other things that we are still interested in moving the needle on. I think elections in schools will continue to be an issue. What else, trustees?
American border.
What else? feel like I've had very long lists in the past. I've got to figure out where to put it.
Yeah, I think it really should, I think that LAC works best from my perspective when it's very focused on what we're doing. So I think the legislative efforts, which are to some degree premature, to put very broad strokes on it, there has been reported of a deal between Nassau County and LIPA that has not yet become official, so everything is very much unknown. But as soon as that is known, that will present opportunities to progress forward. And as a board, we will discuss and direct LAC appropriately. So I think that's going to be a major focus. We don't know when that resolution is going to come. Fair to say?
Yeah.
Very fair to say. So the agreement exists between, right, so just for LAC's edification, right? The agreement exists between Nassau County and LIPA. It converts taxes to a pilot, which requires approval from the county legislature. And the county legislature doesn't seemingly, well, that hasn't been taken up by the Rules Committee. And in order for it to have a vote in the legislature, it has to go before the Rules Committee. And so I think there seems to be some, from what we can tell, there seems to be some sort of reluctance at the county legislature to approve that pilot conversion. And so at some point in time, to your point, right, if something were to come together, then that was, we want to do some proactive work with LAC now, but also if and when we need them to engage, that they are engaging in a way that is, purposeful, organized, and targeted based on what we need them to do.
Agreed.
Right, so we will be appointing a political action or lobbyist tonight. And I think we probably need to get a little direction from them as to how LAC could be best utilized. I think, in prior people, you were on the LAC then, Jim. Some of the direction as to what LAC was doing came from those political consultants as to where the efforts would be guided. So to the extent that we want the pilot changed back to an assessment, that will go to the county. To the extent that we want legislation drafted, that will go to our state legislatures, that are county legislatures. So there are multiple layers, and getting how LAC was deployed in the past was there would be letters drafted, and they would go to the PTA meetings, PTO meetings, other types of meetings, and they would disseminate the information to the parent community. So I think LAC does two things. They help us achieve the goals that we determine with our attorneys and our political consultants, and they make the community aware of the issues, because I don't think everyone is fully aware of the issues surrounding or what it means when this piece of property now becomes a pilot that expires in 7 years, that has really no obligation after 7 years to pay us anything in terms of revenue, and the difference in how it affects our tax cap calculation when it's a revenue stream rather than a taxable entity. When it's a pilot as opposed to a taxable entity. There's a lot of information, I think, that needs to get out educationally to the community of the importance of this, deal and how it needs to be changed.
To build on that, Marianne, I think advocacy is a part as directed by the board, but the communication as a liaison between what the board is doing and what the community should know about what the board's doing is another big charge of what the community is about. We're lucky enough to have our newest member of LAC here, Michael, glad you came, who's, I'm not going to quote you directly, but I'll just paraphrase and say, he said, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of people don't know what's going on and what you guys are dealing with. And I think that would be helpful to have LAC help us get that message out. So I think that should be something that's a big part of it.
Very true. It reminded me too that like, there are a lot of issues in the LIPA deal that involve the tax cap and pilots, but even once that deal is in place, there's still a lot of work that can be done around these same issues that impact school funding in all kinds of ways all the time and will be ongoing. Like, even once this deal is made, new pilots will continue to be a threat to school districts, IEAs will be a threat to school districts, and the tax cap will still need changes. So I think those are going to be ongoing issues.
Not to interrupt, but also state aid just came out yesterday or 2 days ago, and there's a potentially very large change in the way that they're looking at doing that and how that could affect us.
And it doesn't look so good.
And the way
And I'll
that
point
we're
out,
viewed.
Oceanside, also hit by LIPA, got it like a -6%. Negative state aid.
Yeah. So the question of what defines a needy district is multifaceted. Certainly a district losing revenue of a power plant.
Right,
my
and some of it
definition would count.
is extremely technical, like, because part of this formula is the combined wealth ratio, and there are parts of it that say, for example, that if the value of your property in your district drops dramatically in the 1920 year, that could put you into a different tier, which gives you a different multiplier on where your state aid's gonna be. And so it looks like there are gonna be a number of districts, ours, Oceanside, Island Park, that kind of just missed that cutoff from having huge amounts of money, ripped off their property roll. So there are things that should be done there, but they are complex.
So breakfast is on the 8th, then there's a big break. Let's see where we are, and we'll know what to do.
So there was some discussion about where to have the legislative breakfast. And so we've looked, we've given some thought to having it at the transportation facility because it's close to the LIPA site. So like from a proximity perspective, that works. The space that we have there is probably not the most ideal space for the number of legislators that we have coming and what we want to accomplish.
So we're getting a party tent for the
I
president?
had not planned on getting a party tent.
We're gonna get a big bus and have breakfast on the bus while we drive past blighted properties?
I hadn't planned on that. Either. However,
We're getting a boat so we can see the blighted properties from the water?
I hadn't thought of that either.
A hot air balloon. You
I
want to
hadn't.
hover
I had
over
not
the
thought of any
blighted-
kind
I
of
can't think of any other
transportation
way to get next to the blighted
to get to the
properties.
blighted property. I haven't figured that out yet.
Is there a space in the former New York American Water building that Seacliff has purchased?
That doesn't belong to us, so I can't answer that.
Yes,
but what I
there's
can
still
say,
coal ash on the property and it will be flooded by climate change. So it's analogous.
so it is a Saturday morning, so we have all of our facilities available.
None of which are blighted.
And so, not right, true. So we could have it here in this room. We could have it in one of the elementaries. We do need a space that, gives us a little room to wiggle around, but we do need to let the legislators know where to come. They're asking.
Yes, so I'm fine to make a decision tonight. We're talking about this library, we're talking about the elementary school libraries. Someone had mentioned the gathering room at the Glenhead. which
That could
is-
also work.
Now that's upstairs, but I don't know if that's
It's
an
not near
issue.
the door. You just feel like it's nice in there, but you feel like you're kind of wandering around going, where is it?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly signage, we
Sign.
can certainly have
Blighted
enough
property.
signage. But I would say gathering room is a fine place. Any of the elementary libraries are a fine place. This library is a fine place. The cafeteria works nicely here. middle school library would work. I mean, you have a lot of different options, so it's just a.
Are we
and
planning on having community members there, or is just the legislature and?
I don't believe so.
Legislators lack board.
Right.
I'll be in Pittsburgh if that helps you.
I'm going to be at the bus depot.
It's Mikey's opening night for his lighting.
Fabulous.
so.
Oh,
So why don't we just agree to have it at the high school? It's central, and then would you rather have it in the, would you rather have it in this room or would you rather have it in the cafeteria?
this is nicer.
I think this room is softer.
The
Okay.
acoustics are better in here.
All right. So let's plan for the high school library. Then we'll let the legislators know and just be done with it.
Great.
Thank you.
Everyone, please put it on their calendars, unless you're going to Mikey's opening.
Anybody want to come?
Yes.
8-hour drive?
But
9 to
somebody's
11,
got to be
correct?
here.
9 a.m. to 11.
Not when my husband and I drive, it's 8.
Right. That's just so the board members have it for their calendars. It's Saturday, February 8th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the high school, in this room, the high school library.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I suspect it's going to be just us. in a minute. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, guys.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay. Budget.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Can I have some water? Either way. Thank you. Superintendent?
You ready?
issue, Budget?
Yes, okay. So we are still, so in the budget development process, we are still developing it in many ways. And so the next board meeting we have is the board meeting where we will present my preliminary budget to you. As of today, we're actually still working on stuff. We're about $100,000 off of a balanced budget. And 100,000.
Okay.
So we're getting close. We should be able to have that wrapped up in the next day or so. To your point, Dave, on the state aid, the state aid runs were at best disappointing this year. So if you look at the line, it shows an increase of $55,000. When you look at the calculation of what it means in real dollars to us, it's about $200,000 less than we received last year. So we've accommodated to that. We always know that the aid runs the final runs are always higher than the initial runs, so we can count on some benefit to that. We'll work with our legislators and our consultants to help move that along. But what Olivia and Chris and I have been really focused on is looking at the expense side of the budget, not the revenue side of the budget. Right. So while those revenues help us, the things that will stick and last longer for us are reducing our expenditures. So we're looking at how to do that.
I don't know, something does not look right about the state aid. Like when you see Roslyn, Jericho, Manhasset, everyone around here got according to those runs, a bigger percent increase than we did, with the exception of Locust Valley.
Right.
Which got a little.
Because Locust Valley is a much more economically diverse
I-
district than we are.
I couldn't
And-
make sense of
and
it looking at the
Jericho
number.
is way wealthier.
Right,
It's bigger. Jericho's bigger.
but it's still not just dollars, I'm saying a bigger percentage increase.
Well, that's, yeah.
Right.
And so some of that is based on, and I don't have the answer for you tonight, but some of that is based on some of the expense-based aid, right? So there is some aid that comes back to you as a result of the money that you spend. And if
Which
you,
the governor called us all having his credit card.
the governor did, yes, the governor
That wasn't
accused us
helpful.
of having a credit card. And so so there's the expense-based aid that you have to spend money to get the money back, right? So if that plays a role in this. The other thing that plays a role in this is the role of foundation aid. And so foundation aid Everybody has a piece of that, but the governor has made very clear that his priority is to make sure that more foundation aid gets to higher need districts than to lower resource districts. And so that is a blessing and a curse for us in so much as we are not a high need, low resource district. And so that impacts the amount of foundation aid that we receive. But at the same time, we would like to receive more. So, so we're paying attention to, that. We'll see there's going to be a lot of horse trading that happens over the next few months with, relation to the state budget for anybody who's watching. And you all know that once the governor introduces his budget, the Senate will put their own version together, the Assembly will put their version together, and then those three versions have to at some point come together, typically before April 1st. So, so that is the state aid story. In terms of keeping there isn't a lot of new that we're planning for in this budget, right? So we're trying to keep the program intact. We are working on keeping the supports in place. So there's some additional supports with regard to ENL and reading and math and middle school ILC classes that we've been building towards. Those will remain. I'll give an outline of the new courses that we're planning for next year. The board has asked me to have club proposals that are new, and so we've been looking at which ones are coming out, which ones we'd like to propose for coming in. You'll have all that in your budget narratives. And then we're looking at enrollment. So we are looking to keep our class size stable. We do have fourth grade at Glen Head has just been, kids are showing up. We have another student just today, I think. So
That's right. Those cohort things show that our grades continue to grow through about fourth grade.
It was kind of a weird year real estate-wise.
Yeah.
Like, it sort of picked up surprisingly in September and October and we're closing those things that went to contract now. And I think it was fear of the interest rates going up.
It's probably true.
So people bought at unusual times. I've never experienced a year like this.
Nor have we. So we registered a 25th kid in a fourth grade class. And so we've got enough, that class is, supported this year, but that's.
Sorry, there are two classes in that?
There are three classes.
Three, and you're at 25 in one of them?
And one of them, yeah, 25, 24, and 23 right now. And so we believe that we're likely going to look to split that.
I don't know. We had 25 kids in the class in the past. Not while
Yeah.
you were here.
No, not
Well,
while- yeah.
Katie's class and Micah's class we
Yep.
had.
So it's a
20,
discussion.
24, 25 kids. My only point being is that, when you're talking about kindergartners and first graders and second graders, it's harder to have bigger class sizes, right?
I
Because they
agree.
just can't, they're not as independent. When they get to fourth and fifth grade, it's not as much of an issue. They could do more things on their own. The next year they're going to the middle school, so
Yeah.
a year or two.
So it's definitely a discussion that we can have. Where we sit right now, the maximum levy is 3.62. So you saw the governor publish the cap at 1.81 based on the CPI, and then based on the exclusions that we have, it's 3.62. And right now our budget to budget increase is about 2.59, 2.6. It's just and we expect that to go down a little bit. So we are, we're coming along and making progress, and the budget books will come home to the board. Somebody asked me last time, when are we getting the budget books? The budget books are scheduled to be hand delivered next Friday. if not sooner.
Okay.
Okay? So that's the budget update. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Guess I know we're doing that weekend.
Yeah. Good? Okay. We've done comments from the public, plus public. Action item C is personnel. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Action D is the budget transfers, $77,000 to cover special projects and the cost of transporting our talented musical students. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? Questions? All in favor? Thank you. E is the acceptance of the donation from Regeneron STS to North Shore that the superintendent referred to earlier. Each of our two scholars means $2,000 to the science research program. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? F is the approval of the agreement between North Shore CSD and Mamasi, the architects.
You want to do F and G together?
Yes, I'll combine F and G. Thank you. I have to make a motion first, then we discuss it, then we table it, or we just make the motion to table? It's the way-
Make a motion to table,
Do it
then you have
first.
to second it, and then ask for any discussion, and then you vote.
I'm going to make a motion to table F and G. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. H is an approval of an IMA with Roslyn for special education-related services. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? This is the authorization for joint bidding for special education services. Have we done this before?
Yes.
With special ed? I mean, we've done it with everything. I was curious. Other questions? Oh, okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions? All in favor? I is the approval of agreement with North Shore and So Theatrical. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? Questions? All in favor? Thank you. J is the approval with Adrian Daly for photography. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? Questions? All in favor? K is the approval to dispose of inventory. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second. Questions? All in favor? L is the approval of our agreement with David Hutcher and Citron. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Questions? Comments? All in favor? Thank you. Updates from our board committees.
So we did LAC.
We did LAC.
Go
Yes?
on,
Is that's sufficient, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Does someone, Lisa or Joanna, on wellness?
We met 2 weeks ago, and I am pleased with the increase in number of participants on the committee. It certainly allows us a lot more feedback from different directions. We basically broke down into groups, and we were given, we were sent prior to 2 articles on wellness programs, national wellness programs that we had some discussion about. And we were asked to identify an area of focus for this particular year, and it was determined that should be mental health. And Chris is set up a little fun.
No, I think that was a good summary.
Thank you.
It doesn't have to be elaborate, we'll take it. Okay.
I just wanted to mention, we talked about visiting Bayshore, a model program that we read about, and Megan did reach out to them to try and set up a visit. So I saw her email today to them.
Oh, that's great.
Um,
They have been a real pioneer in different types of physical education programs in this program. It's been forever, so they must be doing some great things.
We talked about assessment and evaluation
Yes.
of assessment of the gaps in our program currently, and then evaluation down the road to see if what we're doing is actually effective. So one instance is Bach Harrison, which we'll see very soon, but I think we're going to look into other instruments at a certain point. Oh, and we did notice, we mentioned student voice also is a key component of the wellness committee and program.
Thank you. Who would like construction steering?
Do it. So, we're working on the phasing of the bond. We met with some professionals. We are also looking at possibilities of addressing the traffic situation at the middle school with the front entry, and different recommendations that were made by Bowler, the civil engineer, in light of the proposed changes. As has been the case for the past 10 years when we talked to middle school front entrance, all proposals are expensive.
I was going to say, everything calls for fortune.
You know, nothing $1 million can't solve, but, you know.
At least.
Right,
Million
so
makes
that,
sense.
you know, and how do we integrate that into maybe some of the bond money, moving things around, and what would be most feasible in the long run. And I think that took a lot of our time. The last construction steering committee meeting was at that. We talked about the capital projects that are going to be going forward, and the final phasing out of, you know, the bond, the previous bond, I think is pretty much all signed off on now and paid for. So we're wiping the slate clean and starting anew.
I've been signing those final reports daily on the 2019. Yeah.
So I think we're getting there, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I just want to add one
On the
quick,
front entrance, we talked about the high school front entrance, which I've also been talking about for 7 years. And hopefully that will be done this spring, summer, at least some of the work. The planting may have to wait to the fall, but at least the sidewalks and the underground work and the infrastructure this summer.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I was just going to add that we have added 2 community members to the committee, and I think it's been a real plus. They've been contributing, showing up, and it's been a help, so I'm glad they're there.
Is there a design for the front entrance?
There have been several designs for the front entrance. We are now on design number 3.
We can send, we have the schematic, we'll send that home. But yes, it is designed. That doesn't work?
I'm just saying the shrubs there have been there since I went to school.
They're good, those are
And
all,
that
we'll,
was in the
s-
olden
there.
days.
we'll send the,
They've been there almost as long as the design to change them, I think, at this point.
yeah, in fact, Olivia, if you wouldn't, if you could just make a note. Well, no, but John Hall doesn't write a board letter, you do, right? So, if you
You can write a board letter if you'd like.
poor John Hall today,
John can do it.
right? You wouldn't want to be John Hall today. Everything is flowing to John. If you could just make a note to send the schematic for the front entrance, we'll put that in your next letter. Thanks. What about the softball field?
We talked about that, but we still don't have a
We still
resolution
don't have
on
a
it from the last
There's
time
a-
that we
yes.
discussed it as a board. There is an issue with the softball field.
Drainage.
With drainage, and it involves one of our neighbors. So we have to, we're working with with the Seacliff
Yeah, with the village.
administration as to how to resolve that issue most expeditiously.
I did see that. There is what appears to be like an enormous drain, right?
Yes.
You would think water from the street would go
Yes.
down it, but given the hay bales that we put around the drain, I'm guessing it doesn't work quite the way it looks like it would. I'll go back when it rains.
Water is tough.
Well, who would like safety security?
I will participate in that reporting. since I was there.
Throw
But if
some
you,
things out.
if anyone cares to jump in, Rich was
Rich, were
absent
you-
that day,
You
so.
missed the last one,
Yeah.
right? Okay, well.
We
it's
missed-
on us
we missed
then.
you, Rich.
We did.
Oh, boy. There's always so much to talk about.
It's like we can make John do it.
We could make, well, John could jump in where I get it wrong, or he needs to add a little color. We talked about the district-wide, building-wide, and building-wide emergency response plans that have to be adopted by September 1st, correct, John, by 2020?
Yes.
It has a particular process that it goes through. I think the board reviews it by June, and then there's public comment. There was also a discussion, I think it was a recommendation by our new security consultant, about threat assessment teams, that they be not only district-based, but building-based and multidisciplinary, as a critical prevention tool. So I guess currently we have emergency response teams, and then they want to create building-based.
And we had that discussion with the principals on Tuesday, I think.
Right.
When we met with them.
And those teams would be trained based on threat assessment guidelines.
Yep, the Virginia Threat Assessment Model.
Yeah.
But these are teams that include social workers and,
Mhm.
you know.
Yes.
Let me see, oh, there's some capital stuff here which you guys, you don't really need to speak about. Oh, they spoke of very briefly about the red flag law, and then it was gonna be part of a policy committee
Yes.
conversation. The athletic department has acquired an app for all their coaches to keep track of student information and family information for grades 7 through 12. So Meg McCormick informed us that it would be, I think they were going to go live with that in spring of 2020.
Correct.
And, but it's going to be, it's a separate app from, in the student management system, so it's separate from Power School. And then so the coaches have access to trainer our healthcare staff. It should make a nice common platform by which our coaches can access emergency contacts, parents, and the like. Peter, do you want to speak about the vaping pilot, the vaping detection system?
Oh, sure,
pilot?
yeah. So we reached out to two companies on piloting the vaping detection software in 6 locations, 3 bathrooms at the middle school, 3 bathrooms at the high school. Those each of those bathrooms has currently been identified. We've checked the references on the systems, and we are piloting the FlySense 2 program, which has had some good success in other places. And so I think we're in the process of scheduling those installations, so that should be up and running in the very near future. What we have learned anecdotally is that it hasn't necessarily stopped kids from vaping. It has stopped them from vaping in it just made it more difficult for them to vape in those locations. And the schools that I had spoken to were pleased enough with the program and the software and the devices that they were expanding the installation into more locations.
We also had a conversation about security staff coverage at our buildings, especially now at the high school where there's, for the winter sports, there are many sports going on concurrently, one after the other. So there's basketball, wrestling, there's an event, they're in-house adult education or board meetings that one security guard at the front door would not be sufficient. So we spoke about that and adding resources for security for those needs. Another conversation about the high school North Lock crosswalk safety concern. There's nothing new, but hedges, I guess the hedges were removed from that crosswalk So the line of sight from the teacher's parking lot is a lot more open. So that any pedestrians walking across there, drivers will be able to see them. I guess we're gonna add speed bumps along that parking lot. And construction steering was looking at the traffic study. Is that true?
That was what I was talking about, the front entrance
Right.
to the middle school.
To that, right.
That was really the focus of the traffic study, and the number was 1.25 to change the front entrance.
We spoke about the April 2020 primary election, and several of our buildings are still on tap to house the primary elections, which is Seacliff Middle School, Glenwood Landing. And as we spoke about, that was maybe a lack focus.
It's a question for the breakfast.
I think Jim Gorin has introduced legislation on that to limit it to high schools. I think I read that in the paper.
Yes, he has.
Something that's timely is we had a conversation about the Northport environmental issues, the Northport schools,
the
middle
buildings.
school, the mercury vapor, and John assured us that we do not have similar issues to that, and that we're tested often for any types of drains, like holding tanks, drains from the chemistry labs, and we're on top of that in a timely way. So.
And that we'd never use the basement to store open barrels of anything toxic. It was extremely reassuring. But the discussion of the chemistry labs, right, is interesting and
Well, part of what we
elaborate
did
system.
the last couple of times, we redid the chemistry labs and their lists, we put in new ventilation. That was part of the last bond, when we were first on the board. We redid the venting in the chemistry class.
But if you had Northport cesspool system, that just would have made the mercury vapor move through there faster. So fortunately. Thank you.
Do you remember anything else? That was
I thought,
on the agenda.
it brings us to the policy committee. Which of you will speak?
Policy did not,
Oh.
no, we lost, we lost the date, yes. So we're still in good shape to continue the work, and we'll pick that up, I think, in February. It's in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Brings us to comments from the public. Old business, we had bulleted lack, but I think we've got that covered. Do we have, anybody else have old business?
I have old business.
Thank you.
So, in thinking about budgeting and in thinking about professional development, I would be interested to see, on sort of an annualized basis, what we've spent on different types of professional development. IB, the SVOs, Columbia's Teachers College, the math programs, in terms of, because that's a budget line.
It is. If we do, I'd be interested in what benchmarks exist in terms of
Right,
what
the
you should
effectiveness,
be
right.
spending on professional development, given the investment we have in our faculty.
And where else, professional development opportunities exist. Because we do get a grant, but that grant has been spent for the last, 7 years I'm on the board, largely towards Columbia's Teachers College.
Okay, how many years would you like?
How many years would the board be interested in looking at? Past 5 years?
I don't have strong feelings.
5 years?
I'm more interested in looking at both sides, right? Like, I'm open to the idea that we're underinvesting in it as well, so.
I'm more
Right,
interested
so
in
I'm
how
like,
we're allocating it,
I
the
don't
funds.
want to just compare ourselves to ourselves, exactly. I don't want to compare ourselves to
What
Kansas or West Virginia
what IB
either.
cohort are we up to now? So we're graduating our,
Mikey was the first to graduate, 2017. 2016 was the first year. that
Right.
we implemented. It was the class of 2017
Mhm.
who graduated.
I would say 5 years.
Can do it. We'll probably need a little bit of time to just organize this, because we'll have to pull all
It's
the.
not, right,
it's-
all in the same.
It's not all in the same place
All in-
and it's all in the same format. So,
I'm glad you mentioned that because it's not in the same place, let's make sure we catch all the places.
right, so we're gonna need a little bit to sort out where everything is, so we get it to you, so.
Right, because
um,
in your first budget year, we took out a big chunk of it. We took out a big chunk that had been covering some stuff that was going over the summer.
We took out 50,000. yes.
Right, so,
There were two places where you had professional development. You
Yep.
had part of it in the
think it's more
IB
than
code,
two.
and you had part of it in the PD code, and then you had it somewhere else.
Yes, this has, since I've been here, there's historically been about $250,000 in professional development funds that we allocate each year. So we'll pull all this together. We're gonna need probably a couple of board meetings before we can bring this back.
That's
to
fine,
you.
I'm just interested.
Is that in the instruction section, those lines?
Yes, they're on,
So
they're
that's
on.
February 27th, I don't know.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Just
We'll have on those lines for that meeting, right, we'll have the historical expenditures for those lines, but the extent to which I'll be able to tell you where.
Sure.
Where everything went and how it was spent is another animal.
Okay.
Okay, but we'll see what we can do.
other old or new, loosely defined? Joanna?
Yeah, I'd like to have a discussion, I don't know, Peter, if you put the money for possibly the budget for next year. I know that there were some administrative concerns
Mhm.
last year, I know that there were some legal concerns,
Mhm.
there were some concerns on the board. So I'd like to, have a discussion, but the focus of my discussion, for me personally, is, I think if we're going to continue the arrangement that we have, that there is a requirement that money is spent on student activities and student programs.
Mhm.
I don't know if we have funded the Casa Coffees.
No, we have not.
I don't know if you've gotten a bill for that.
No, we have not. No.
Yet, or I'm just assuming who was paying for those speakers. I know that when I left the organization, there was some $45,000. I just want to, if we're going to continue to spend the money, spend it on kids.
Yeah, absolutely. We should talk about this maybe within the scope of when we get to the community services components of the budget development process. But what I was thinking, just so I can share with you where my thoughts are on this, that I think we're at a place in time with the organization that it probably makes better sense for us to have treat them more like a vendor. Right, and then that provides professional development as we, contract with them to do it, rather than the way that it's set up now. So that's a recommendation that I'm bringing to you. But we had always when the board, so the board made this, commitment, right, to put money in the operating budget. I think it was 16-17. Right, for the 17-18 school year. Absolutely.
But as part
Absolutely.
of that, they were supposed to be providing services, and the problem was they were not providing the services in the school, or necessarily for the school.
I just think we just need to have a
They
discussion
haven't,
on the
it hasn't
focus
really
of
been.
those and if you're gonna, I think that's probably a good idea, treating them as a vendor.
Mhm.
So I'm really not interested in funding 15 parents get together.
We're definitely, I can assure you, we're not
And
funding
not
that.
that I don't
Yeah.
think parent education should happen, I certainly do. and we spent a lot of time the first couple of years doing that, but
Uh-huh.
I think at this point, every cent that we spend should be spent on programs like this.
I'm like 1,000,000% with you on that.
I have a new business item. Just a question and also a comment regarding transportation during midterms week and finals week. I know with the middle school, 8th graders, that parents were told that the kids had to come in at noon for the midterms on Wednesday and Thursday, and they were told to provide their own transportation, and it seems that we should be busing those kids who would be entitled to busing for an 8 o'clock start should also receive busing if it's a 12 noon start, especially if they're being told to stay home until that point. And I know at the high school there are buses that take kids home at, I guess, after the morning midterm. And I don't believe that there are buses that transport kids to school for the afternoon midterm. And we have the buses, and I think it's something that we have an obligation to do, certainly getting kids there for their midterms. Because it does impose a burden on working parents, especially with
I really don't know how
8th
people
graders,
do it, right.
getting them there for a noon exam.
I had to take time off, or rely
Yeah,
upon my in-laws.
that should not happen.
Right. I would really love for
we
us
can look into
to
that.
look at that. And the other piece of it is, when we're doing exams, we don't serve lunch. Like, the cafe's open, but we're not serving the regular lunch. So during exam week, if you're entitled to a free lunch, you can't eat.
Okay, look into it.
It may be tricky because there may not be tremendous demand, but it just seems like,
Mhm.
but even if it's limited,
Yeah, there's probably
the
a way to.
reimbursable meal should probably be served.
Yeah, there's probably a way to deal with that through the kiosk.
Breakfast too, for that matter. you know,
Yes,
if
I
there's
agree. I agree. Okay.
Other? The night is young. I think that's all we have then. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Unless you have, I didn't formally check with you. You're
I
good?
do not. Thank you
Okay.
for asking, though.
I apologize, but you
No
looked
worries.
like, I thought you would chime in if you
I
had
would.
something you wanted.